Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
No, Lisa, there are no normal men now. Only male dogs left for our share. Anyway, somehow we missed the moment. And now what? We can only get cats, as decent old maids should, Isabella said gloomily to her friend. First of all, we are not old, and secondly, we are not virgins. Lisa disagreed, and as she knew how to bring some nonsense back into the most serious conversation, she couldn't help herself. I read that old maidens herd goats in the other world. Such is their punishment. Do we need it? Isabella couldn't stand it, she laughed. Well, I hope we will be freed from this burden. We've spent enough time with goats in our lifetime, and we're not virgins, and one of our affairs can be counted for marriage. Both girls were, as they said, a little over 30, and to be exact, under 37. Both were unmarried, but with a good baggage of failed romances, small tragedies, and big disappointments. Now the friends were sitting in a cafe, discussing the collapse of another hope that had befallen Isabella. She wanted to get married, but apparently this desire visited her late, after 25 years, when most of her peers have already married and peers, respectively, married. She had a few novels, and even with a proposal of marriage, but then she somehow thought that it's too early, will have time, and then realized that she does not have time. There are enough suitors, but there are no candidates for husbands, and if there are, it would be better not to have. Closer to 30 years, both happened to get acquainted with all the most disgusting representatives of the male tribe. Alphonse, for example. Isabella had to deal with an Eric, a little younger than her, and of course handsome, aware of his appearance, and eager to use his capital to the fullest, and doing it very technically. Started small. Isabella, be an angel, put 50 cents on my phone, I'm broke. How am I supposed to say goodnight to you? And just like that, little by little, Isabella, I didn't notice how Eric started to treat her finances like his own. Apparently, he thought it would always be like that Isabella was completely at his mercy. And at some point it was. He no longer hinted, asked, demanded, but she loved in everything, understanding, could not give up this dependence, and he, even having found a richer patroness, continued to use Isabella's handouts. Of course, one day everything ended, but according to the principle of the wedge with a wedge, Isabella met Bob. This man was older than her, smart, serious, and reliable. At least that's how it seemed at first. He was much more comfortable than Eric. He knew how to surround a woman with care and attention. But that impression only lasted until he invited Isabella to his home and introduced her to his mother. This probably should have proved the seriousness of his intentions, but only proved that he is an incorrigible mama's boy, and no one can stand such a mama as a mother-in-law. That's why Bob remains a bachelor for almost 40 years. It was necessary to think at the first meeting with the girl of the sun, when not yet made a proposal, not received consent, this is not an old and quite intelligent-looking woman, at a set table began to explain Isabella how to take care of Bob, how to keep the house, wash dishes, cook, starched the laundry. I, Isabella, devoted all of myself to my family, to my husband and son. When I got married, I quit my job. My late husband, Bob's father, was a talented military man. He would have made general if he hadn't died. But he was a child in the domestic sphere, because I took care of the house, and I know all about caring for men, and I'm ready to teach it to my son's future wife. It was like hiring a maid. Apparently she saw Isabella that way, as a future maid and nanny for Bob. Isabella thought it was funny at first, and then she realized that she didn't see her possible mother-in-law as anything else. She didn't even allow Isabella and Bob to be alone in her house. If they were alone in his room, the door had to be open, strangely enough, and the man himself thought it was normal. Mom is bored, and what are we sitting here for? Let's go to the big room and watch TV with Mom. If they went out for a walk together, his mother would call every minute, asking him to go to the pharmacy or to the store for something. And then she would start reproaching her son for taking such a long walk. Today it's wet, and you didn't put on a scarf. Why do you need to go to the movies? You can watch TV at home. You'll come in too late, and you won't get any sleep. This threesome romance could have ended in marriage. Bob even hinted at a life together. But when Isabella said she would only agree to live apart from his mom, he was horrified. What do you mean separate? Are you suggesting I leave my mother alone in an empty apartment? Visit her on weekends? But you think about it, how we will live without her, because she is a treasure trove of worldly wisdom. Imagine how many things you could learn from my mom. No wonder Isabella was in a hurry to end the relationship. Perhaps to the relief of both Bob and especially his mom. One thing that relationship had taught her was to bypass Mama's boys by the 10th road. Another category, married men. These, the girl had encountered several times. These just wanted to diversify their family life, a break from the baby squeak, nagging wife and other routine, in the company of a free woman, beautiful and intelligent. Of course, up to some stage, they pretended not to be married. Then they admitted that marriage had long ago become a sham. Divorce is not a problem, it's just a matter of time. And now you have to wait because... Then they went on with the same explanations. His wife was ill, the children were small, his mother wouldn't understand, she had a weak heart. Are they given the same manuals at the registration of marriage, where it is written how to persuade mistresses? Isabella was sometimes surprised. She did not want to wait, wanted love, family, a life without lies, without prying eyes, without shame, but there was no such thing. Samuel, the hero of the last novel, was, it seemed, not like the others. Maybe it turned out because Isabella herself had fallen in love with him, knew he had a stamp in his passport and had been for a long time. They were barely 18 when they got married. The bride lied to me, told me she was pregnant. Where could I go? My parents were involved, both mine and hers. So everyone decided that we should get married. As soon as possible, before the bride's belly is visible. So I became a married man, and very soon it turned out that there was no child. I lied I really wanted to get married. Can you imagine how we lived? We stayed with her parents. I tried to go to mine, but they chased me back. There's family there, you have to, but what kind of family is there? Scandals, yelling, screaming. 100 times I suggested divorce, but it started a perfect Sodom. Then there was an opportunity to live separately from his parents, and everything is not that settled, but stalled. That is, we almost stopped talking at all, lived as neighbors. I understand she has someone else too. And you don't have kids? Isabella asked. No, and as I understand it, she can't have any. In fact, we haven't lived as husband and wife for 5 years. But why don't you divorce? Isabella was sincerely surprised. It's also very complicated, the apartment issue, money, and in general. I have a car on credit in her name, and besides, we have a lot of debts. No, it's impossible now. We have to wait 6 months. We'll be divorced in 6 months, I promise. But in the meantime, aren't we already a family? She's the legal wife, and you're the one and only. No, she and Samuel did not live together. But several times a week, he had no problem staying overnight at his Isabella's house, and she could finally feel like a wife. She ran the household, cooked lunches and dinners, waited for him from work. They were even going on vacation together. They had already chosen a resort, were ready to buy vouchers and tickets. They were working the last days before the vacation. And just a day before they were going to the travel agency, Samuel came to his beloved at a bad hour and hiding his eyes said, "I'm sorry, honey, but the trip is postponed." "Not for long. I don't know how much you know. Circumstances have changed." "What circumstances?" "We agreed. I already have and packed, and vacation I have registered. What could have changed?" At first, Isabella was just surprised to think that the trip had been postponed for a few days. "A lot of things, Isabella. My wife gave birth to a son yesterday, congratulations." And Isabella saw that Samuel was really happy, rejoicing, though troubled. But troubled by what? That he had to say it to her. Or was something else troubling him? How did she give birth? How did it happen? "I don't understand," you told me. Isabella realized how silly her question sounded. "Well, it's just like giving birth, like everyone else, just like us. We haven't invented anything fundamentally new. I'm married, my wife gave birth. I don't think that's surprising." The lover explained as if nothing had happened. "I understand that, but not in your case. You said you don't live with your wife at all, and there can't be any children." "Oh, my God, Isabella, what are you talking about? You sound like a 16-year-old girl. You must know that all married men say that to their girlfriends." "Well, I said yes. I may be guilty, I may be blamed for it, but you're just as guilty, both to yourself and, pardon me, to public morality." "That's not what I'm saying. I'm telling you that our trip is completely impossible right now. Maybe it'll happen, but we have to solve this issue somehow. You know, the child, the wife is not in the best condition. How can I leave them now and go away?" Samuel was really surprised at Isabella's incomprehension. "How were you going to go just a week ago? After all, we planned this trip together, didn't we? Or didn't you know your wife was going to have a baby soon?" She really didn't realize it. "Well, the thing is, the baby was born prematurely. I thought we had a month, maybe a month and a half. Why not go? But my son was rushed, and that really complicates things. The baby is premature, my wife is in serious condition. They need help. I have to be there for them." Samuel explained it so convincingly, in a businesslike manner, as if he were talking to a fellow worker, convincing him that it was impossible to go fishing. "And yet I don't understand. How could you live with me all this time, stay overnight? Your wife didn't know? Or didn't care?" Actually, Isabella already realized that this affair was over, but still wanted to know how Samuel managed so cleverly to lead two women by the nose at once. "I didn't know. She was on maternity leave, in the sanatorium rested, went to her mother. That's when I stayed at your place. And thank you very much. We were very good together. We were happy. You have to admit, that's a lot too. I don't see any reason to get hysterical about it now. I'm not throwing any tantrums. I just don't understand how you could do it. What could I do? What did I do? I don't understand what you're doing out of nowhere. You knew I was married from the beginning. You must have realized I was probably lying. Now what's the big deal? You're a grown woman, and I was hoping you'd take it maturely, calmly. Yes, it happened like this, but we can keep a good relationship, and soon we can still go on vacation together. We'll have time. When? When your kid goes to school, retires from the army? What are we going to drive, a wheelchair? At least you'll have someone to drive you around. No, I'm not going to wait for that kind of happiness. Goodbye. I'm sorry, dear, but I'll drive without you, and I'll do everything without you." The woman said angrily, "That's good. That's right. Go without me. And understand, I really didn't lie to you. I love you. I wanted to marry you, to divorce my wife, but you see what happened. Samuel, apparently, did not want unnecessary scenes and explanations, so he tried to get rid of Isabella as soon as possible, but she just wanted some clarity. You didn't do this without your involvement. I thought you said you didn't live with your wife. I wouldn't have messed with you if I didn't. Here we go again. I told you. I didn't know what I said. Was I supposed to report to you? Or ask permission to sleep with my lawfully wedded wife? That's it, get out. Sleep with whoever you want. Don't sleep with whoever you want, but get out of my life forever. Cut Isabella off. Okay, Isabella. You know my phone number. Call me if you need anything. You're still important to me. Get out. Samuel left and Isabella was alone again in an empty apartment. It was hard. It was unpleasant. Disgusting it was. To realize that she was being used again, that she was once again, no one wanted her, no one cared about her. It's so disgusting. What can she do after that? Look for another man and hope that he is married or not will take her seriously. And she's already 37. It's not the clock ticking. It's the volleys rumbling. It's hard to keep it all inside, but who else to talk to about it? Not Lisa, the same Lisa who's been treated no better by fate. I really don't understand, Lisa. Why is this happening? I've tried to find the reason in myself, but I can't find it. I'm a normal woman, perfectly normal, just like you. Yes, we could be perfect wives, mothers, but we could be true happiness for someone. And we're always victimized by who the hell knows what. But why? I wish I knew. I have the same thoughts myself. Sometimes I think we just did the wrong thing from the beginning. We should have gotten married when we were 18, and everything would have been fine. And by the way, we could have been, remember in 10th grade when Ethan was in love with me? And there was a guy chasing you. I don't remember his name. He was in the same class as me. Ethan? I don't remember anything like that. All I remember is that everybody ran away from me when they got what they wanted. I don't think anybody ever loved me. Nobody ever loved me at all. They just used me like Samuel. Well, think about it. To lie so authentically, to gain his trust, and yet I fell in love with him. And what a bastard, he's so sure that if he blows the whistle, I'll run away. Imagine him saying that. You have my phone number. Call me if you need anything. How does it feel? Everybody else did the same thing to me. Why is that? I don't know. I guess we just missed out on the ones who were really in love, but I only remember them in my early teens, and then, yeah, it was all stupid and gross. You, Isabella, you're making me sad. I think you've lost faith in life because of that Samuel of yours. Forget it and forget it. It's time to think about the future. We don't have much time left. We have to find a real man. Because of Samuel, because of Eric and all that? Because they were all Samuel. And there was nothing else in my life, you know? What real men? Where are you gonna find them, you tell me? Let's go to a dance, to a disco, to a 30s night. Let's find another Mason, and in a week. Or a year from now, we'll be crying on each other's shoulders again. No, Lisa, I've decided I'm not falling in love or having any more relationships. It's time for me to age gracefully and take care of my health. Every affair like this takes 5 years off my life. How hopeless you all turns out, right here at Once to Grow Old, but I'm sure that we will definitely be lucky, and it is not necessary for this to go to some clubs and so on. Maybe our happiness is much closer than it seems. Of course it is. Do you have a roommate? Abandoned by his wife for drunkenness and abuse? Isabella asked venomously. You're getting a little soft, friend. In my opinion, Isabella, the whole problem is that you already agree that only the worst can pay attention to you. But I, for example, do not think so. What does that have to do with some abandoned neighbor, some drunk, or, I don't know, someone who's been in jail? Nobody's offering you that. We have unmarried and quite decent men at work. Lisa persisted. 20-something guys, thank you. I haven't gotten to the point of throwing myself at little things, either, and I hope I never will. You're 20 years old. John's in his 30s or more. And Brain, he's not the freshest flower either. I think he's in his 30s, although there's nothing wrong with 20-year-olds, and we have people our age at work. Married men. I don't want to get involved with married men anymore. And that's a lie to listen to. You know, it's no fun either. Nobody's forcing you to get involved with married people. What's wrong with our sales manager, Jack? Isn't he married? Isabella was already making her friend laugh. Married? Our enemies should be married like that. You're right about something, though. He's too tough a nut for us. Maybe he's divorced already. They say he was married for a long time and not happily. He loved his wife so much, and she cheated on him left and right. Can you believe it? Just out in the open. Well, how else could it be, when everyone knows and almost laughs in her face? He knew everything. And so she cheated on him, and he loved her, but then, apparently, reached the edge and fell out of love. But that's still not our option. If he loved her for 10 years and put up with everything, he probably loves her now. Are they divorced or not? No, Jack, let him live with the memory of his lost love. We need to find someone else. I don't think work is an option either. If I wanted to have a relationship at work, I'd have looked at Jack myself a long time ago. Noticed Isabella. What am I hearing? So you like him after all? Lisa rejoiced. Why shouldn't I like him? He's a normal man, decent and handsome. Isabella reasoned. Yes, she really liked him, and only some of his aloofness prevented her from paying closer attention to Jack. Besides, she thought he was married. Yeah, you'd pay attention, wouldn't he? Well, you know, if I did, maybe he would. Why wouldn't he? Isabella was stubborn. No man, whatever you want, but that's not an option. Why don't we look for someone else? Lisa persuaded her. Otherwise, we'll really have to cry a lot. But I don't understand you, Lisa. You're pushing me. You're discouraging me. I don't know if it's not an option for you, but I think I could get to know him better. Don't make up things, Isabella. You're on the wrong track, trying to get in the wrong sled again. I'm not trying to get into anything. I'm not telling you that I'm getting close to Jack, but I don't think it's out of place. The only reason I'm not getting close to him is because we work next door to each other, and that's not the best thing for any kind of relationship. Come on, I get it, and I'm not discouraging you. I'm just warning you that this is a really inaccessible fellow. We won't be able to melt his heart. That's what you think, but I'm sure I could. Isabella suddenly took possession of a kind of dash. She reasoned as if relieved. Everything is bad, love is gone, but why not try again? Would she really agree to go on living? Without love, without hope, to have cats, to grow old, to take care of her health, to drink kefir, to eat oatmeal on water. No way! How about you? Lisa sighed. No, that's the attitude I like. I recognize my Isabella. But you know, I'd advise you to be careful. Jack's good, I'll give you that, but he's gonna be a little hard to deal with, and the results may be worse than Samuel. Maybe you're right, but I'll give it a try. A free-spirited man with no particular flaws. Yeah, love for another woman. That's not a flaw for you. What love? They have such a complicated relationship, and you don't know if he's divorced or not. That's love for you. They say she left him, and such love is even stronger. The one who was abandoned is forgotten, but the one who was abandoned. Don't listen to any gossip. It does not look like he would forgive cheating and then cry for the woman who left him, spitting on everything. They didn't have kids, did they? There are definitely no children. He does not pay alimony, but here it is far from children. The main thing is the feeling for this wife. Lisa reasoned. You know all about his feelings. He reported to you directly. But I bet that I can win him over very easily. Bet. Oh, you do? Well, let's bet. Who's against it? But let's bet on something serious, not a candy bar. Because no one will fight for a candy bar and there's no interest. Remember we were looking at rings at the jewelry store, and you liked one expensive one. I really liked it too, by the way. So let's bet on that ring, shall we? That's how this strange wager was made. Something pushed to this deed quite adult, serious, educated women, maybe upset feeling, maybe drunk at the beginning of the conversation, a bottle of white wine. At any rate, the bet was made, and Isabella walked home in a rather high spirits. It made her laugh that she and Lisa had had such a bet. How she would accomplish her goal Isabella did not think much about, but after all, if nothing came of it, she would have to buy her friend a ring. Yes, it's expensive, but what can you do? Where else would the money go? She doesn't have kids, she doesn't even have pets, and she has enough for herself. It wasn't about the rings or the bet. She was suddenly excited. She really liked Jack, though she hadn't followed the twists and turns of his life, especially after his affair with Samuel had begun. After all, Isabella was sure she would be married soon. And now what? Why not pay attention to a worthy man? But how to do it? They have been working in the same firm for almost a year. They see each other almost every day, sometimes discuss work issues, and never from the side of Jack. There was not the slightest interest in Isabella as a woman. So what should she do now if she wants to be noticed? Dress more showy, more provocative. No, this way you will not attract attention, and who she will make fun of, who will be outraged, you are at work in the office. Yes, and not a girl already, a grown-up aunt, ridiculous to show their charms. However, business clothes can be very seductive. Isabella knew her strengths. She had a beautiful figure, thick hair, well-groomed face. Even familiar women did not give her 37 years old, although she never hid her age, just watched her appearance. At work the next day, she was going to be especially diligent. No, the style of dress was businesslike, but with a hint. The slit on her pencil skirt was a little deeper than usual, and when walking sometimes revealed the lace garter of her stocking. The neckline on the off-white blouse, too, was a little more daring, and she had her hair styled in a sleek but sophisticated knot. A little more colorful makeup, nail polish, everything was elaborate, austere but mysterious. And most importantly, the perfume. They weren't exactly work-appropriate, spicy, tantalizing. Everyone had noticed since the morning that Isabella today looked somehow particularly attractive, everyone except Jack. They had to talk to Isabella a few times on the job. Once, while showing some numbers on a report, she bent over his computer keyboard so low that she almost touched Jack's cheek. And nothing, not the slightest emotion. He just leaned back in his chair slightly so as not to disturb Isabella. In short, the day had passed in vain, and Isabella had no idea what to do next. Well, not to carry her to work pies of her own production, trying to win the heart of the boss. Some women in this way, trying to influence the man they like, remembering that the way to his heart is through the stomach. Who just thought up such nonsense? What goes through the stomach? We know what it turns into. but I'm not going to go to him with an explicit proposal. It's disgusting to think about. At the same time, I didn't want to back down, and not just to win the argument. And really, I'm getting old or what? A normal kind of man, but no attention. She thought with annoyance. Well, let him not fall in love right away, but at least he can't look at me like a wall, can he? And Ethan, younger than him and me by 10 years, still stares at me, even talks to me, but this one? Either I'm losing my touch, or there's something wrong with him. I tried to act, and more frankly, once, seeing that Jack goes down the corridor, lurked around the corner, and hearing the approaching footsteps, all twisted, slightly lifted her skirt and pretended to correct the seam on the stocking. Not even a glance. Another time, as if accidentally bumped into him, she dropped a folder with documents from her hands, so that the sheets flew all over the corridor. Jack apologized, began to help her collect the documents. Their hands collided, but he only helped, not a glance in her direction. Meanwhile, already other co-workers were beginning to notice Isabella's exertions and chuckle. One of the women bluntly asked, "What are you, Isabella?" For Jack decided to run. What else? What kind of nonsense? Isabella was indignant, feeling a traitorous blush on her face. But it looks like that. All twirling around, twirling. Oh, in vain. In this way you can only push away. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do, Isabella said irritatively. Lisa started laughing too, hinting that she would soon have a new ring. The month-long period in which Isabella was to win Jack was coming to an end, but there was not the slightest change in his attitude. One day, the director of the firm announced that 2 employees had to go on a business trip to sign an important contract. A lot depends on success. Strictly said the boss. We'll go, of course, Jack, and with him. Can I go? May I? Several voices shouted at once. No, you're not experienced enough, and I need you on the spot. Isabella, I think, will do the best job. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, of course. Isabella answered in a steady voice. She realized that this business trip gave her a chance, but she tried not to show her feelings. Someone might have believed her indifference, but not Lisa. She understood the possibilities for her friend. But there you go. Now you'll win for sure. He'll take you in his car. Right? You'll be there as a couple. Oh, I don't know, Lisa. Isabella waved away, trying to hide her triumph. I'm seriously thinking about buying a ring and giving it to you. It would be easier and less frustrating. I feel like some kind of maniac. Don't make it up. That's because at work, in public all the time, and there will be 2 of you, in an informal setting. Yes, here anyone wins. Don't forget to bring some nice lingerie and a party dress. The green one. You'll seduce anyone in it. On the day of departure, Jack picked Isabella up at exactly the right time. She had packed her traveling bag with great care the day before. In the morning she also carefully applied makeup, did her hair, but she did not dress. She met her colleague in a lace negligee, thrown on the most elegant underwear. Such an outfit best emphasized all the advantages of her figure and, according to Isabella, made a lasting impression on any man. But Jack looked at her as if she had opened the door in a man's tracksuit. Aren't you ready yet? It's a 5-hour drive. His tone was extremely unhappy. Oh, come in. I'm sorry. I'm so nervous. I was afraid I'd forget something. Come in. Wait 5 minutes. I'll wait downstairs in the car. Try to make it 10 minutes, please. And he calmly turned and walked out. Isabella almost cried with frustration. Such an elaborate image was wasted. Yes, he must be impotent or something worse. And here I am dancing in front of him as if he were Jack, the last man on earth and in my life. Oh, Lisa, You got me going, even though you said you couldn't do it. That's what lured me, she thought angrily, hurriedly dressing without much effort. What did it matter how she looked if there was no one to appreciate her efforts? In the car, however, Jack decided, apparently, to change from anger to mercy. I'm sorry that I rushed you so much, but soon the traffic will start, and I wouldn't want to be late. We have to check into the hotel, go to bed on time, so that tomorrow we won't yawn at this very important meeting. Oh no, you'll forgive me. I'm always so afraid of forgetting something when I'm traveling, so I take a little longer than I'd like. Isabella was a little amused. It was a start that pleased the woman, but that was the end of it. She tried to make casual conversation, but the companion answered one-wordedly, showing that he was not interested in conversation at all. And Isabella was resentfully silent, preferring to look out of the window. They drove for a long time and arrived at the place in a small town in the late afternoon. Near the hotel, Isabella got out of the car, stretched with pleasure, not for the sake of seduction, just tired. Almost 6 hours sitting in the same position, my whole body was stiff. Oh, I'm so hungry and sleepy, she sighed. Let's check in and go to a restaurant. Not a hotel restaurant. There's usually nothing good in those, but over there. I've seen behind that grove. There's some place, and we'll walk there. He's coming. I'm tired too, but I want to stretch my legs. Let's go check in. At the information desk, an unpleasant surprise awaited them. The receptionist said, in an apologetic tone, that although they had booked 2 rooms, one was already occupied, a certain important guest had arrived. What are we supposed to do? Jack wondered. We are not important guests, but we are here on business. We have an important event tomorrow, and you suggest me to sleep outside. Why should we? Mumbled the receptionist. There is one room, and it is quite spacious. You can make sure of it. There is a large double bed, even a 7-bedroom bed. We are not spouses, not relatives. How should we sleep? One by one? Jack was boiling. Even Isabella was discouraged by what had happened, although the situation greatly increased her chances of success. However, there was nothing to do. They had to go to this one room. The receptionist accompanying them muttered something about moving the chair, and she would send them extra blankets. There was a way out of every predicament. If you had arrived early, we would have tried to find one of you a room in town, somewhere nearby. Thank you, you're all set. The main thing for you was to get someone important settled, and we can sleep on the floor, on a chair, wandering around in corners. Mind you, I'll be forced to file a complaint. Of course, as an apology, we can deliver you a free dinner to your room. The receptionist promised. Thank you. Do you really think that after what happened, we have any reason to trust you and your staff? Keep your dinner and we'll have to eat at another restaurant. Cut Jack off. Well, this place is pretty cozy. Isabella said conciliatingly when they were alone in the room. It's really quite spacious. We can get along without disturbing each other. Let's get ready to go to the restaurant, shall we? I wonder how careless you are about everything, said Jack. I am not so much frightened by the prospect of spending 24 hours or whatever it turns out to be with you in the same room as I am outraged by the attitude of the administration. The room was booked and here you are. It feels like some kind of bad joke, but don't take it so personally. What can we change? Kick someone out of the room. File a complaint? What's the big deal? After all, we're both adults and nothing bad can happen here. You're not a maniac, and I promise not to bother you either. We can coexist peacefully. Thank you, of course. We probably won't annoy each other, but the situation is unpleasant. Jack didn't stop. Oh, how many unpleasant situations are there in life? Let's pack up and go to a restaurant. Maybe it will be a more pleasant pastime. Isabella joked. Jack was annoyed, dissatisfied. Isabella, on the contrary, amused. She felt that she would soon reach her goal, so she was going to the restaurant with all care. It was necessary to change out of traveling clothes, to tidy up. Isabella, do you know it's past 10 o'clock? We should go to bed early tonight to look like normal business people tomorrow. Hurry up, Jack. Yeah, sure, I'll be right back. We have to look normal at the restaurant, too. I'm always a little disheveled after the road. Flirtatiously responded the woman. I doubt that anyone will look at us there, and even if they do, who cares? But would you really like to accompany a woman who looks unkempt? Isabella was offended at the end. You look fine. Stop poking around. I want to eat, not escort women. Yes, you're not a master of caring for women. Isabella sighed and went about her business. I didn't come here to woo you. Jack cut me off. Anyway, you can make up as much as you like. I'm going to the restaurant. You'll find your own way, and I'll get us a table. Or there won't be room for us. Well, go ahead. I'll catch up with you real quick, said Isabella. When Jack had gone, she sank into a chair. Well, she had a beau. You'd never find one like him. Perhaps he would lie in the same bed with her, turn his back and snore. Where else would you see such a thing? If Lisa saw it, she'd die laughing, she thought irritably. She decided to get ready, not for Jack's sake, but for her own. She wanted to look good, attractive. After all, she would be going to a restaurant in a new place. Maybe she would make an impression on other men, and Jack would melt a little when he saw it. She walked out of the hotel onto the almost nighttime street. It was dark and deserted, and she had to pass through a small square. She was not afraid, though, for the silence and tranquility of the town whispered that nothing bad could happen here. The woman boldly went forward, becoming alarmed only when she noticed that she was being followed by two big guys who were examining her with appraising glances and whispering. Young men, I don't need security. Isabella told them when they got too close. But we are in great need of the company of beautiful women, and you are quite suitable for us in this respect. The guys came close, and she felt their hands on her body. Long-saved irritation finally spilled out on these bullies. What the hell is this? The one who needs does not pay the slightest attention, but these are ready to pester every minute. Get off, you scoundrel! She shouted and hit one of them with her purse. Look at you, what a stubborn cot! Glumly said the other, and showed that they were not going to lag behind, but Isabella was not going to be an easy prey. Enraged, she hammered both of them at once with her purse, and with her fists, knees, legs, cutting them down with the last words. Oh, come on, she's some kind of seizure, said one of them at last. Fool, nobody was going to rape you. We wanted to invite you to a restaurant, but now you go out alone, and there is a maniac here, by the way, so wait for him. Going away, the guy shouted, and then someone else came from behind and took her by the shoulder. Only then Isabella remembered that she had a gas canister in her purse, pulled it out, and quickly looked around and pointed it in the attacker's face. It was Jack. Isabella, what the hell are you doing? He shouted, covering his face with his hands. The woman looked at her coworker confused. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was that maniac and it was you. Let's go quickly to the restaurant. There is a toilet. You can rinse your face. The woman mumbled fearfully. They reached the restaurant. Jack went to clean himself up. Isabella sat down at a table. When her companion came out with inflamed and reddened eyes, Isabella almost cried with guilt. I'm sorry, please. I just don't understand how it happened. I wanted to defend myself, These hooligans, and they attacked so suddenly. How did you end up here? I thought you were at the restaurant having dinner? Yes, I was going to have dinner. I went to the restaurant, took this table, and then, to be honest, I felt bad about leaving you behind, but I decided to come and meet you and bring you here. Just like a gentleman, and that's what happened. I hope I don't lose my eyesight. Why did I even agree to come, and with you? It would have been better if I'd taken someone else or gone alone. There's no second room at the hotel anyway. No way, honestly. What's my fault? I'm not the one who sent some tall guest to take our room. After using the spray can, Isabella didn't dare to be too indignant. I promised that in the negotiations we came here for, you won't have to regret that it was me who went. Of course, I'm not saying it's your fault. It's just that it's all so ridiculous, and you know, Isabella, somehow I think it's not that it's your fault, but how do you want to make a mess of things all the time? Sometimes I feel like you're just stalking me. Maybe you don't feel that way. Suddenly, Isabella blurted. Afraid of her own words, I decided to turn this unpleasant conversation into a joke. I'm a spy sent by a rival firm. Ah, setting a trap for me. I see. Jack grinned crookedly and put the napkin over his eye again. It's true, it's very peculiar, but how am I going to show up at a serious event tomorrow looking like this? People will think I've been drinking all night. Oh, don't worry about it. I have this eye cream. It relieves inflammation instantly. I brought it with me just as I felt like it. I'm sure it'll help you, and in the morning, put some patches under your eyes. I've got them with me. They're great for bruising and bags under the eyes. So you'll look flawless, I promise. Yeah, well, you can take care of yourself. I've seen that. I hope you'll give me the same beauty treatments. You're not going to do my makeup? If you ask me nicely. My cosmetics are expensive and good, don't doubt it. Isabella was joking. In the meantime, let's just forget about the trouble and go in peace. The food here is not bad, I see. Thanks to the jokes and the good dinner, they returned to the hotel in a good mood. When they entered the room, they began to make themselves comfortable for the night. Jack began to make a bed on the floor from the extra blankets he had brought, and Isabella made the bed. Look, Jack, maybe we shouldn't make some kind of bed on the floor. The bed's really wide. We each have our own blanket. We can sleep without touching each other. No kicking each other or pestering each other. I don't snore. I hope you don't either. I don't know if I snore or not. I don't think I used to, but this, as you say, bedpan, I'm quite happy with it. I don't want you to think anything bad of it, but it makes me feel better. And I think it'll make you feel better too. I don't know, I'm not going to be nervous anyway. We're not innocent teenagers, thank God. We're both adults, so what's the point of demonstrating? Well, whatever you want, I'm not going to talk you into it. It's just embarrassing. You're already sorry you came with me. It's not a demonstration, and I don't regret anything, that's all. Well, that's not necessary. If you say so. You're not married, are you? Isabella asked. What's that got to do with it? I'm divorced, but that has nothing to do with today's situation. If I were married, I'd be sleeping in my car. I respect women, you see, and I don't want to put them in an ambiguous position. That's why I'm lying on the floor. We wanted to invite you to a restaurant, but now you go out alone, and there is a maniac here, by the way, so wait for him. Going away, the guy shouted, and then someone else came from behind and took her by the shoulder. Only then Isabella remembered that she had a gas canister in her purse, pulled it out, and quickly looked around and pointed it in the attacker's face. It was Jack. Isabella, what the hell are you doing? He shouted, covering his face with his hands. The woman looked at her coworker confused. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was that maniac and it was you. Let's go quickly to the restaurant. There is a toilet. You can rinse your face." The woman mumbled fearfully. They reached the restaurant. Jack went to clean himself up. Isabella sat down at a table. When her companion came out with inflamed and reddened eyes, Isabella almost cried with guilt. "I'm sorry, please. I just don't understand how it happened. I wanted to defend myself, these hooligans, and they attacked so suddenly. How did you end up here? I thought you were at the restaurant having dinner." "Yes, I was going to have dinner. I went to the restaurant, took this table, and then, to be honest, I felt bad about leaving you behind, but I decided to come and meet you and bring you here. Just like a gentleman, and that's what happened. I hope I don't lose my eyesight. Why did I even agree to come, and with you? It would have been better if I'd taken someone else or gone alone. There's no second room at the hotel anyway. No way, honestly. What's my fault? I'm not the one who sent some tall guest to take our room." After using the spray can, Isabella didn't dare to be too indignant. "I promise that in the negotiations we came here for, you won't have to regret that it was me who went. Of course, I'm not saying it's your fault. It's just that it's all so ridiculous, and you know, Isabella, somehow I think it's not that it's your fault, but how do you want to make a mess of things all the time? Sometimes I feel like you're just stalking me. Maybe you don't feel that way." Suddenly, Isabella blurted, afraid of her own words. I decided to turn this unpleasant conversation into a joke. "I'm a spy sent by a rival firm." "Ah, setting a trap for me." "I see." Jack grinned crookedly and put the napkin over his eye again. "It's true, it's very peculiar. But how am I going to show up at a serious event tomorrow looking like this? People will think I've been drinking all night." "Oh, don't worry about it. I have this eye cream. It relieves inflammation instantly. I brought it with me just as I felt like it. I'm sure it'll help you, and in the morning, put some patches under your eyes. I've got them with me. They're great for bruising and bags under the eyes. So you'll look flawless, I promise." "Yeah, well, you can take care of yourself. I've seen that. I hope you'll give me the same beauty treatments. You're not going to do my makeup? If you ask me nicely. My cosmetics are expensive and good, don't doubt it." Isabella was joking. "In the meantime, let's just forget about the trouble and go in peace. The food here is not bad, I see." Thanks to the jokes and the good dinner, they returned to the hotel in a good mood. When they entered the room, they began to make themselves comfortable for the night. Jack began to make a bed on the floor from the extra blankets he had brought, and Isabella made the bed. "Look, Jack, maybe we shouldn't make some kind of bed on the floor. The bed's really wide. We each have our own blanket. We can sleep without touching each other. No kicking each other or pestering each other. I don't snore. I hope you don't either. I don't know if I snore or not. I don't think I used to, but this, as you say, bedpan, I'm quite happy with it. I don't want you to think anything bad of it, but it makes me feel better. And I think it'll make you feel better too. I don't know, I'm not going to be nervous anyway. We're not innocent teenagers, thank God. We're both adults. So what's the point of demonstrating?" "Well, whatever you want. I'm not going to talk you into it. It's just embarrassing. You're already sorry you came with me. It's not a demonstration, and I don't regret anything, that's all. Well, it's not necessary, if you say so. You're not married, are you?" Isabella asked. "What's that got to do with it?" "I'm divorced, but that has nothing to do with today's situation. If I were married, I'd be sleeping in my car. I respect women, you see, and I don't want to put them in an ambiguous position. That's why I'm lying on the floor. Respect all women?" Surprised Isabella, who was already aware of the adventures of Jack's ex-wife. Why not? I can't stand only their bad habits and can't accept cheating. You're not married either, are you? There was a clear desire to change the subject, and Isabella answered readily, No, and never have been. I was going to, yes, but it didn't work out. Maybe it was for the best, especially when you think about the people I was going to marry. You know, everything seems fine, everything is going to the wedding, and suddenly such details are revealed that you realize that you cannot live with this person. That's the way it is. You probably think I'm trying to get to you and harass you and all that, and you seem to think I set up the room all by myself. I assure you, I didn't. No, why would you think that? I don't think that at all. Although it is strange that we've been bumping into each other lately, and every time it's not good. And now we have to share a room. I don't think it's your doing, but it does seem a bit deliberate. It's rare to see strangers, a man and a woman, forced to share a room, but like brother and sister. Isabella smiled in the dark. Let's go to sleep already, shall we? Jack agreed, but they both couldn't sleep for a long time, thinking about their own things. Isabella pondered whether she should continue her endeavors with this hard nut. And Jack, he wondered whether he had offended this nice woman with his inattention, sometimes rude remarks, which could be taken as an insult. I'm a fool. I can see that she is not indifferent to me, so why should I push her away? After all, I like Isabella, and because of my complexes, we can remain strangers forever. And the main thing is that I can't understand why I'm behaving like this. Keep fidelity to me no one, and to marry I would like no less than she married, or I'm afraid that again something will go wrong. My first love cost me a lot of blood. Of course, to assume that it will always be so is not to assume that it will always be so. But still I would not like to be convinced of it, by experience. The next day was very responsible. They had to achieve the conclusion of the contract, that is, to convince the partners of mutual benefit, and both Isabella and Jack were extremely collected and persuasive. Thoughts about personal problems left them. However, even before the negotiations began, Isabella jokingly made a wish. If all succeeds with this contract, then with Jack we will be all right. Perhaps she was hoping to build a relationship in some way to show her best side. Jack would see that she wasn't a flake, and maybe he'd at least give her a real compliment. Everything turned out as well as possible, but the only thing Isabella waited for from the one for whom she made so much effort was a firm, friendly handshake. What kind of a man is that? Was it hard to get a kind word out of him? All the others admire, but this one, the woman thought sadly. It was decided to celebrate the successful deal with a corporate party in the banquet hall, and Isabella decided to show up at the party in the full glory of her mature beauty. Okay, she lost to Lisa, but let Jack see that he lost even more. It is not known what she did not please him, but Isabella will not get to the bottom of it. How many times can we do this? Apparently, she's just not the one for him. Well, love was without joy. Separation will be without sorrow, the woman thought, though she had been convinced more than once that this belief was wrong. She had a little love with joy, but parting brought much grief. Well, at least now there would be a chance to relax a little. And Isabella shone. She came to the party dressed not at all businesslike. Jack had never seen her before in such a dress, with such a hairdo, compliments from everyone, even from women. There was no end. Everyone wanted to drink, dance with her, and Isabella did not refuse anyone. Happily drank champagne glass after glass, joked, quipped, flirted. Jack's serious look did not upset her, but only encouraged her, let him see what she could be. She was sitting there like an owl. She wouldn't ask me to dance, but that was fine. I wouldn't be lacking cavaliers here. Drunken fun, she thought. And there was everyone wanted to dance with a beautiful, liberated woman. They even tried to get her a date, suggesting she run away from the party. No, you see, I'm not here alone. Isabella refused. Your date doesn't seem very companionable. People wondered. Yes, Jack is a very serious, businesslike man. Agreed Isabella, and Jack saw that Isabella was getting drunker and drunker, probably because of the habit of alcohol. Something broke up my lady. He thought with displeasure. It seemed to be so right, though with a weirdness, and here it is on the through. We should evacuate her before she makes a mess of things. Apparently she can. He walked up to Isabella, took her under his arm. Isabella, don't you think it's time for us to go home? You seem tired, he said coldly. Tired? I haven't even begun to have fun yet, the woman replied stubbornly, pulling back her hand. When do you, Jack, call for me? I'd like to know. Isabella, in spite of her condition, still realized that it was necessary to restrain herself a little, to watch her tongue, or as if she would really not say too much, but she wanted to shout in his face in front of everyone. Where am I supposed to go with you? I almost hang on your neck, and you either do not see or do not want to know. It's like fate brought us together, and you're running away like a leper. If I'm so disgusting, just tell me to back off and stay away. Feeling that now the alcohol she drank would really loosen her tongue and she would be embarrassed for life. Isabella bit her tongue, and Jack, apparently realizing that it was necessary to act quite differently, changed his tone. Come on, Isabella. You've danced so much, that's enough for tonight. He spoke affectionately, putting his arm around the woman's waist. It was the right move. Come on, Jack. I've really been jumping around and drinking a little too much, and I'm no good drunk, am I? You're always beautiful, Jack assured her. They reached the room, and on the whole way Isabella kept silent, afraid to say something she would regret the next day. Her mood had changed. Now she didn't want to reproach Jack. She wanted to confess her feelings, but on the way she had sobered up a little and realized that this confession might not end well. Well, as he would say something like, "It's all right, go to bed," and then lie on the floor, such humiliation she could not stand. Why are you so quiet all of a sudden? You used to be so talkative, asked Jack when they came to the room. My tongue is slipping and my legs are slipping too, mumbled Isabella. You're a fool, Isabella, and you drink a lot. Letting her into the room, Jack said reproachfully, I don't drink much, hardly ever at all. I was just disinfecting my mental wounds, that's all. She explained, standing in the middle of the room. They didn't turn on the light. The bright moon was shining directly into the window, its light silvering the woman, coloring her face and hair an unusual ghostly color. How beautiful you are now, Isabella. Jack couldn't help himself. Only now, and tomorrow I will again become ordinary, unnecessary, superfluous? Sadly asked Isabella, who began to sober up as quickly as intoxicated. Not at all. I always saw how good you were, but I didn't dare. I didn't know how you'd react, afraid you'd push me away. He came over and stroked the woman's pale cheek. And now you're not afraid? Putting her hands on his shoulders, Isabella asked. Now I don't care. Push me wherever you want. Isabella pushed Jack so hard that he fell backward onto the wide bed, arms outstretched, and she slipped into his arms. It was a night of love, with crazy kisses, incredible confessions, vows. Isabella was happy that night, and not because she had won the bet. She realized that she really loved Jack like she had never loved anyone before in her life. She was ready to share her happiness with the whole world, and with Lisa, of course. When Jack fell asleep in her arms, she pulled out her phone, took a selfie and sent it to her friend, letting her see that Isabella hadn't lost her touch, that she could love, and she could be loved too. After that, she blissfully dozed off, resting her head on the world's most trusted shoulder. Isabella awoke alone in the morning, but she was neither surprised nor frightened. Jack entered the room with a tray and a cheerful cry. "Who ordered breakfast in bed? Who's hungry?" Isabella clapped her hands. "It didn't even occur to me to order. I thought it only happens in the movies, and it's weird. I'm used to washing up first and then having breakfast, but I'm hungry. I'm gonna take a quick shower, and don't start without me, okay? Don't stay in there too long, because I'm hungry too in every sense." Happy, Isabella ran to the bathroom, hurrying to do her morning toilet as soon as possible. She didn't want to miss a single minute of this wonderful morning, but when she walked in, all the colors seemed to fade. Jack, fully dressed, was busily packing his things into his suitcase, not a trace of his recent cheerfulness on his face. A tray of untouched breakfast stood on the bedside table. "Did you decide to pack before breakfast? There's still time, we'll make it. Why don't you sit down at the table? Have breakfast by yourself. Have a good appetite. I'm going home," he said calmly. "I mean, why? Are you offended by something? That I didn't eat right away?" "No, Isabella. It's just that I know everything now. I know the purpose of your mockery of me, this trip, this night." He nodded at the phone on Isabella's pillow. "You got a message? I opened it. Read your friend's congratulations. I'll join you. You've done a great job. What did you write? Why did you read it?" Isabella reached for the phone, feeling that her hand had become quite cold. "I agree. It may not be pretty, but as it turns out, not for nothing. But you listened to your girlfriend's gossip in vain. I'm not married for a long time. If you were, you wouldn't have a chance. That's what I said. What's that got to do with it?" Isabella threw the phone away without reading it. "Yeah, let's say Lisa and I did something stupid. So we argued, so what? The truth is what happened last night, what I told you, and the rest is nothing. Believe me, I would never have done that if I hadn't cared about you. I wanted to be with you, understand? If you had listened to the whole conversation between me and my friend, how can I understand and believe after what I found out?" Jack said tiredly, "I saw that you cared for me and paid attention to you too. You seemed to me unusual, not like everyone else, inaccessible and beautiful. In a word, a real woman. And what do I see now? An ordinary cheap girl who decided to play at love with a man who gave no reason for it, and then she drank, and that's that. That's not true, Jack. I'm asking you to sit down. Forget what you saw on that phone and just talk. You'll see that you can trust me. Does everything that's happened between us mean nothing? And what does this have to do with the game and what I drank? You could have just ignored me and moved on. I know you'll try to braid me with your words, seduce me with your charms, but it doesn't mean anything. You, pretending to be madly in love, still had a moment. You filmed the whole thing and sent it to a friend. Just to show off. If you don't think that's gross, I'm sorry." Isabella couldn't take it anymore and went on the offensive. "I think it's creepy to go through other people's stuff, to read other people's correspondence. Now I understand why you got divorced. You're just pathologically jealous. Was your wife cheating on you, or did you think she was? Torturing the poor woman with your suspicions, checking her every move, so she couldn't take it. You're leaving? Good riddance. I'm very glad I've been spared such a misfortune. Goodbye. Your performance was good, but your technique was lacking. Goodbye. And Jack picked up his things and walked out, slamming the door. That slam calmed Isabella a little, gave her a chance not to fall face down into the pillow, not to burst into tears, which meant that she had hurt him after all, and probably correctly discerned the nature of his relationship with his wife. It is necessary to come to such an idea, to go through her phone, and most importantly, why? What did he want to find there? It's a personal number, not a corporate one. She picked up her phone, opened it to Lisa's message. "Congratulations, my friend, you made it, didn't you?" "Well, I didn't doubt it. The bet's won. You're the winner, as usual, and the ring is yours." She looked at the picture Lisa had sent her. There she was on Jack's shoulder, still happy, still in love, still in love. Loved? Can you walk away like that if you love? And this is coming from me, who's been separated from at least 5 men. It's my fate to be always not loved, but only used. And that too, I slept over, and God bless my legs. He's still slamming the door, so be it. She too began to pack, trying not to think of her victory turning out to be such a defeat that Isabella did cry. But very quickly she calmed down, saying to herself, "Enough crying for everyone, it's too much. No and no. In war, as in war. I'm 37, my train has already left. What do I do now? Call a cab and go home to age honestly, quietly, no matter what Lisa and everyone else says." She called a cab, once again surprised that Jack had abandoned her, had not driven her home. How vulnerable is he? She thought contemptuously, and all the way home she tried to remember something else negative about Jack's behavior. She wanted to dislike, even hate him. There were any number of moments like that, but they were all overridden by that night. It was impossible to forget. Was it really over? How will I meet him tomorrow? How will he look me in the eye? Oh, I wish that night had never happened. As Isabella was getting ready to go to work after this harrowing business trip, she thought about how she would meet Jack. Embarrassing, honestly. Grown women, and to think such a thing. And now he had this opinion of me, and he couldn't change it, no matter how hard you beat your head against the wall. But why should I be ashamed? I wonder if he's ashamed of what he said to me after a night like that. But it was worse than you'd think. Jack wasn't at his workplace, but his boss greeted Isabella like a heroine. "Thank you, Isabella. You did a brilliant job negotiating and closing a contract that so much depends on. So you and Jack are both getting bonuses. He's even gone further by transferring to a branch that's long overdue. So we will have to think about who will soon become the acting head of the sales department." Isabella was the least interested in this question. The smile on her face became wooden, the look of confusion. "So that's it, huh?" Jack decided to transfer, not to work with her, not to see every day with the cheap one, and not to remember this stupid story. "Oh, come on, I'll worry about that. He transferred and all right, and he did the right thing, good for him. In a week, all this drudgery will be forgotten, and at the same time, and the work in the branch will improve. Well done, Jack, you're a hero." Isabella thought with mocking anger. But the story would not be forgotten, and the searing kisses still burned on her face. Lisa sidled up to her during a break, congratulated her, made resentment stretch out. "Lucky you, Isabella. What kind of injustice is this? Some people get everything, awards, praise, a night of love, and a ring, but others. When are we going to the store? I'm not going to say no, am I? We're adults, right?" "Of course we are." Isabella didn't say no, trying to save face. "After work, if you're up for it." "Always ready, I know how to lose," answered her friend. "Yes, and I would love to lose in this dispute. Anyway, why should I win these rings and everything else if he considers me a cheap prostitute and even drinking, ready to sleep with anyone on a drunken binge? Isabella thought. Most of all at that moment, I wanted not to sit at work, not to go to jewelry stores with Lisa, but to be at home on my couch and cry properly. But not to show it to everyone. She should look like a winner, lucky, beautiful as always, and Isabella tried to live up to her status. When the workday was over, Isabella felt so tired, but the need to hold on remained. Lisa picked her up under her arm and spoke into her ear. So, shall we go to the jewelry store? I'll look for earrings. Imagine I was going through my jewelry and I don't have a blue stone, but I really need it. I won't buy it now, of course. I don't have enough money, but for my birthday. Listen, Lisa, what if I don't need it? This jewelry store, how stupid is that? I'm ashamed to take that kind of money from you for nothing. Let's consider this whole thing a joke. No way, we've known each other for 100 years. You know very well how serious I am about this kind of thing. Are you trying to make me stop respecting myself? No, of course not, but I told you it was a joke. Isabella wanted to go home and cry, not pick out rings. Why do I need all these rings and earrings and everything in the world? Of course, you won't be helped in any way by these fashionable rags in a brilliantly meaningless woman's fate. Very true. But my feminine destiny, only meaningless and not at all ingenious. Isabella thought absent-mindedly. What's gotten into you, Isabella? Lisa kept up. She is walking, silent as if she had water. That is not water, but sour soup in her mouth. I'm just tired today, and the weather's not so good, so I'm not in the mood. Isabella dismissed it. Strange, you were more than happy in that picture. So tell me, what happened with Jack? She needed details, and she wasn't going to be satisfied with generalities. What happened was he found out, saw this picture and your messages. Well, and resented, and as if and all on it, left, slammed the door. What kind of mood could I be in after that? Isabella explained tiredly. Now we'll buy a ring, put it on your finger, and your mood will be better. I know that for a fact. Don't doubt it. Here we are. The friends entered the brightly lit salon of the jewelry store. They approached a shining showcase. Lisa looked intently at Isabella, pushed her. Come on, choose. Which one did you like then? This one? Girl, do you have any size 16s like this? If not, the one with the pink stone. Is that a crown? It's much more delicate, isn't it? Let me try it on, please. Give me your pen, Isabella. Come on, I don't need it. Isabella pulled her hand away and quickly left the store. What is this? What are you, Isabella? It's clear I'm in love. I thought I was just playing around, but it turned out to be serious, didn't it? Lisa giggled. Nobody's in love. What are you talking about? Isabella almost cried, wishing she could get away from Lisa. I'm not blind. I can put two and two together. You look at yourself in the mirror, because in the coffin more beautiful put, under the eyes bruises, pale, even cheeks fall. What's that got to do with it? Isabella couldn't hold back her tears. You know how to fold, so think about why you want to buy me this ring. What will it remind me of? Think about what we two grown-ass women have come up with. It's a 5th grade girl's time to play like this, and we're in our 40s. My women my age have kids getting married. Some of them have grandchildren. I got a man into bed on a dare. Great thing, to drag him in, but not to keep him. He ran away from work to avoid seeing me. Isabella, what are you doing? Lisa consoled her, already frightened. He didn't run away. The chief wanted to transfer him to the branch office long ago. It just so happened. Don't worry, it's not in another city. You'll see he'll call you. Everything will be fine. When have men ever run away from you? Even if you split up, they'll call you for another year. They don't give you peace. Nothing's gonna happen this time. After he found out about our argument, if he calls, it's only to send me further away. And Isabella sobbingly told in detail how Jack had behaved when he found out about their scheme. Do you have any idea how embarrassed I was in front of him? Yeah, even if he wanted some kind of follow-up, he wouldn't have called or come near me. Well, the hell with him. So what if he was a prince? What was he? Lisa asked confusedly. A divorced man, his wife, they say, cheated on him. Horns like a moose, and he forgave her after all that. And he decided to steam in your phone. You are not his wife, not his sister. How could he take it in his hands? Not to mention being rude to you. I think he's a bore. I've noticed that for a long time. Remember that Kathy he gave the secretary a telling off. She cried for an hour and drank valerian. Oh, all right, Lisa, I'm going home. I'm exhausted. I can't talk about it anymore. I'm sorry. What about the ring? Come on, let's go buy a ring. You'll make yourself happy. My friend persuaded me. No, Lisa, buy yourself some earrings. I don't want that ring. I'm sorry. The next day, Isabella couldn't walk to work. What if Jack doesn't show up? Yesterday she was afraid to see him. Today she was afraid he wouldn't. After all, there are also women in the branch, and how do you know if someone will be seduced by a handsome, positive, and free man? And she wouldn't be a fool like Isabella. And if he was around, it would be possible to talk somehow, to explain, and their relationship, perhaps, would go to another level. Or maybe it would have been clearer. Jack didn't need her, disgusted by what had happened, but there was a surprise waiting for her at work. Isabella, I see that you came from a business trip so tired. It's not surprising. The result was pleasing, but now I have a request to you. Things are not going well at the branch. Jack's having a hard time, and you've shown yourselves to be a great team. Can you help out there? If not, your refusal won't make any difference. Why not? Isabella exclaimed, holding back her glee. The more difficult the task, the more interesting it is. I like your spirit, and I'm glad I'm not mistaken in you. When can you go to your place of work? I'd like to go today, but I've got some errands to run. So I'll be out there first thing tomorrow morning. Does Jack know yet? Not yet. We'll let you know today. We didn't know if you'd do it. That's what the warden said. Can we not tell him? Let it be a surprise. Isabella asked cheerfully. All right. Surprise is a surprise. The man didn't argue, apparently realizing something. And Isabella suspected that he had realized it for a reason, not by himself. So she asked her friend at lunchtime, Did you tell the chief to transfer me to the branch? Well, of course I told him, and he immediately obeyed. Lisa snorted. I didn't tell him anything. It was your Jack who probably asked for you to be transferred to him. Isabella liked that assumption. It was quite possible that Jack himself had asked to be transferred. It would mean, probably, that he wanted to make up his mind about their relationship somehow, too. It would be good if that was the case. That was all she said, sighing. Jack didn't ask for anything. He sat in his office, sorting through the statements and schedules, his mind wandering with thoughts of her, of Isabella, and it was impossible to escape them. And those thoughts were, more often than not, guilty. But what had I done? Why had I hurt a woman? A good woman. It was a great sin, she argued. After all, she bet on me, and not on others who are also single and pretty. So she cared for me after all? and why she probably got into that bet. Because I'm a sucker myself, I acted like I wasn't interested in her at all. So I upset her. I did not know how to impress, how to start a serious conversation, and that's why this dispute happened, and then she was too much. It was worth it to make a story out of it, and even more so to insult her like that. And now what should I do? Call and apologize? He was aware that it was probably the best option to apologize, but he didn't know how Isabella would react. After all, she was very offended and even angry with him. And rightfully so, anyone would be angry, even a very loving person. Not everyone is capable of being forgiving, understanding. Is it because after Lara, I can't get over it? I can't learn to treat people differently, women in particular. With the usual disgust, he remembered his ex-wife Lara. Yes, she had cheated on him throughout their torturous 10-year marriage. She cheated and he forgave. The cheating started before they were married. They met when they were students, studying together. Jack fell in love. Just to cramps, she was good at the time, but the main thing is not even beauty, but some kind of attraction. She attracted and beckoned not only him alone, but almost everyone, but she was responsive in this regard. It seemed that she and Jack had already had an affair, love, and it was even getting to the wedding. And suddenly he finds out that she shares her caresses between him and another man, and it would be all right, a promising man, capable of something to strike a girl's imagination, no. A married, older man, father of 3. Jack, of course, immediately presented Lara with a claim. That is not even a claim. He almost died when he found out about her adventures, and only then directly asked what happened. Why? She cried a lot, repented, apologized, said that she gave in to emotions, that it was an accident, and never again with anyone, no way. And he forgave, because the application had already been filed and the wedding preparations were in full swing. That is, no, he was not interested and would not stop it, but the wedding would be upset, and it would be fine. He could not imagine how he would be without her, without Lara. Anyway, they got married, and she gave in to her emotions a few more times. Those were the times he knew about. And she'd done it all strangely, not even hiding it, so sure was she that he'd forgive her. Or did she care that much whether he would forgive or not? And even people were not ashamed. No, it was all strange and then disgusting, and he realized that he was turning into a ridiculous character in some book. His wife comes in from her lover and says, "And I did it again," and the husband cries. No way, he's not going to be like that. Should I put up with it? Yes, it's better to suffer once and forget it. Maybe she had a disease like that, nymphomania? Who cares? But in any case, the marriage broke up. The funny thing is, it was Lara's initiative. She found herself a more financially favorable party, and with that and disappeared from the life of her ex-husband. Jack couldn't get back together with anyone else. Not because he loved his ex-wife so much that he couldn't forget her. Of course he couldn't forget her, but what love is there? Love did not remain. It was replaced not even hatred, but some cold contempt. And in other women he continued to see something bad, to suspect that they could do the same. And what kind of relationship, if you look at a man and suspect him in this? And then Isabella appeared, and she really made an impression on him. Jack already thought that he'd found the one who would help him forget the failure, the mistake of his youth that had cost him so much. Even in Isabella's beauty, there was something that set her apart from other women. There was no availability, no willingness to betray. That was why he didn't dare approach her. He didn't know how to communicate with such women. What kind of women did he have? Well, Lara, and then? And then they were no better, just disposable friends, relations with whom left nothing but disgust in his memory. That's why he couldn't communicate with a normal woman. He was used to such women. How happy was he when he found out that the two of them were going on a business trip? And this room is one for two. It was literally the hand of fate. No, not in the sense that he was going to get into bed with her, but it was possible to talk, to get to know each other better. And then all of a sudden, it's like this. It's a pretty weird thing to do. And what do we do now? No, of course we should apologize. It's not her fault. Maybe it was a friend who put her up to it, maybe. Yeah, whatever it was, either way, it's not worth crucifying a woman for making a mistake that no one got hurt by except for one inhibited psychopath named Jack. And after all, that night was so good and Isabella was so sincere. Nothing like that had ever happened with Lara. There had been lies at every turn, shame and embarrassment, but here, it could have been different here. If it weren't for my stubbornness and the memories of a first marriage long overdue to be forgotten. Otherwise, I'll never get out of this maze. Everywhere you step into, there are new corridors, traps, basements, and all paths lead to some polymyth rather than the personal happiness I so seek. Jack was so engrossed in his memories and torments that he was hardly surprised when the office door opened and Isabella walked in. It was as if he had realized her with his thoughts. "Hello, Jack." Calmly, as if nothing had happened, Isabella said, "I've been sent to the branch to work. I was hoping you could show me around and give me a sense of the scope of work." "What?" "Oh, yes, of course, Isabella. I'm sorry." The man pulled himself together. "It's just so sudden, especially since I was just thinking about you. So I was confused when I saw you." "Why would you do that?" "There's nothing special about my appearance." Coldly, Isabella smiled. She was so businesslike and collected, as if there was nothing between them, and so charming, so native and necessary. "And yet, yes, you are here on business. Let me show you where to start," said Jack, trying also to keep to a business tone. He did not dare to talk about the events of the recent past. Isabella also did not touch these topics. Further, they communicated only on work. Well, it's clear he will not find out any relations now. The woman thought, we won't be able to talk about everything at work anyway. And what if afterwards he just packs up and leaves? And nothing? Then everything will be clear, although very unpleasant. Unfortunately, that's what happened when at the end of the day, Isabella decided to give Jack the documents she had checked. The secretary said, "Leave them with me. I'll give it to you tomorrow morning." Jack had already left today. "Good. Trying to keep a businesslike appearance," Isabella replied. She left the papers and walked out. "Well, that's it, and this stage of your life is safely over. You could say to this Jack, 'Thank you for not dragging out this story.'" "But why?" "He wasn't going to do that, but what am I supposed to do? Should I quit?" "No, he seems to have forgotten everything, and soon I will too. And for me to have an affair or even a light flirtation with a colleague, no way. I mean, I've decided that I'm not having an affair with anyone or anything else at all." She went to her workplace. She had to get ready. The working day was over. Most employees were already saying goodbye, and he wouldn't even say goodbye. He's touchy. Isabella thought, trying to keep her thoughts mocking, almost succeeding. She got ready, went outside, walked anxiously, without looking around, to her car. She wasn't in the mood, but there was no need to hide her feelings either. No one would see her. No one was interested in her anymore. Suddenly, she almost jabbed her face into a large rustling bouquet of flowers, raised her head, Jack. "Isabella, I wanted to apologize. I acted like an idiot, like a bore. I've said some things that I'm unbearably ashamed of. I know it's not easy for you to forgive me, to accept me, but will you give me another chance? Are you crying, Isabella?" She was not crying. That is, she was not sobbing or moaning. Just the nerves, tense in the last few days, suddenly relaxed, and the tears themselves flowed down her cheeks, washing away all the resentment and doubts. "Have you forgiven me, Jack?" she asked. "All the nonsense and nasty things started with me." "Not at all. Let's forget it all, shall we? Let it be as if there was no argument, no spying and saying what I said. Isn't that possible? Of course it's possible. I really want to forget. It was forgotten. There was no more talk of the dispute or the scandal that followed. Soon their relationship was no longer a secret to anyone, and everyone was sure that this relationship was real. Such a beautiful and harmonious couple is not often met. Although once, almost a year later, Jack still reminded Isabella of her childish pranks that had connected them. One day, inviting the woman to a cafe for dinner after work, he suddenly said, "Isabella, do you remember how it all started? You know, that argument with your friend?" "You bet." Isabella smiled. "But I thought we agreed not to bring it up." "Quite right. But now it's quite clear that you've won the bet, and my heart is in your pocket, isn't it?" "Yes," the woman confirmed with a puzzled expression. "What was the bet? A ring?" "As far as I know, your friend never bought you one, did she?" And so Jack pulled out of his pocket a box containing a beautiful ring. "Will you please be my wife?" A year later, Jack and Isabella's co-workers were celebrating their happy wedding.
Subscribe and click the bell. Yes. How could you think that about me? Michael looked at his wife, Adriana. What else was I supposed to think? She was very upset with him. "I don't know. Call me first before you jump to conclusions." He resented her for being jealous of him today. Michael worked at a firm in the city, not the least of which was his job. Everything was going well. He never complained about life. Once upon a time, a handsome boy was born into an ordinary family. When he was brought from the hospital, he did not yet realize how lucky he was with his parents. His mom and dad just adored him. Whenever Michael needed to buy a toy, Dad would do it. They always spent weekends in the park. Everything was good in the family. Michael learned that from his parents. He never hurt girls at school or at daycare. He stood up for them. The boy was decent, honest. If his class teacher asked him to do something, he always did it. After graduation, Michael entered the institute. No one doubted that he would graduate. And now, in his senior year, his parents were going to celebrate his graduation in the country. "Mom, Dad, I'm not going with you." He told them. "What do you mean, you're not going? It's your party, and you won't be there." The woman didn't understand. "You don't understand. Graduation at school is one thing, but now it's graduation at the institute. I'll never have a time like this again. And now we're going to get together with our friends to meet. Are you trying to stop me?" He stood, smiling, looking at his father and mother. "All right, fine. Where are you going to celebrate?" His mom asked him. "We haven't thought about it yet, but I think we'll go to a cafe," the young man said. The graduation went well, as Michael expected. And then it began. In all his years, he had never experienced the pain he felt the morning after graduation. "Michael, hi." He picked up the phone and heard his aunt's voice. "Hello, Aunt Betty." He wasn't thinking about anything today. Most likely his aunt was calling to congratulate him on his graduation. "Sweet nephew, don't get upset." She started saying strange things. "Auntie, do not understand you speak more clearly," frowned Michael. "Yesterday, when your parents were driving out of town, their car was thrown into the oncoming lane. There was a head-on collision." The woman said. "What?" Michael asked her again. "Michael, your parents are gone." She told him. "I don't understand." He shook his head, and couldn't get his head around what his aunt was saying to him. I realize you're in shock right now. I just want to tell you, I haven't done anything myself. I will come soon, and we will solve everything. She spoke quickly. She hung up. He hung up, went into the room, sat down on the couch. What's going on? Had Aunt Betty told him the truth? But his father was an excellent driver. He would never let him fall asleep at the wheel or anything else, Michael reasoned. The aunt came, a couple of days later, to organize the funeral. Even when the young man saw his parents in the casket, he couldn't believe what had happened in the cemetery. He cried quietly and realized that he was left all alone. Yes, he has an aunt and uncle, but they live far away, and the guy will not be able to come to them with his aunt. At least he was socializing, and he didn't know anything about his uncle at all, just his name. The moment Michael got home, he didn't want to talk to anyone. The triad won't even talk to me. A woman approached him. Please leave me alone. Politely, he asked her. At this point, Michael walked over to a picture that showed his mother and father. He took it in his hands and then stood silent for a long time. Dad, Mom, I promise you I'm gonna do great, and you'll be proud of me. After that, he put the picture back in its place. Michael went and lay down on his bed. In the morning, the aunt was going to leave, but before that she decided to go to the cemetery one more time. She took Michael with her. But like at a funeral, he stood aside. A single tear rolled out of his eye. It slid down his cheek and went into the ground. Michael realized that his life was now divided into two parts, what he had with his parents and what he had now. In his hands, he had a diploma of higher education. He could start looking for a job. The young man could not find anything suitable for a long time. The profession of cashier salesman did not suit him. He wanted something serious. So 6 months passed. One day in a cafe, the young man overheard a conversation between two men. They were talking about their firm needing a courier. Michael had already made a joke. He had already heard about this firm. And now that there was an opportunity to get a job there, it didn't matter who. He didn't want to lose that chance. Within 10 minutes, he was sitting next to the men, showing them his accomplishments to this point in his life. What are you, man? What kind of courier are you? Look at your credentials, school, college. All the couriers in the world would have one if they had one of these on their hands. Said one of his new acquaintances, do you want to offer me something better? Michael dared to ask. Sure. Come back tomorrow. Here's my card. The man handed him a plastic card. Michael took it and went home happily. He entered the entrance, waited for the elevator. As soon as the elevator arrived, he stepped inside. Wait, he heard a voice and turned around. A pretty girl was running after him. He held the door for her. When she came in, he stood looking at her from the side. Do you live in this entrance? He asked. No, I came to visit a friend. She laughed. I see. Who's your girlfriend? I just live in this neighborhood. I know everybody. Did he mean what he said to her? You probably don't know her. She came to visit her aunt. Well, that makes sense. Why haven't I seen such nice girls in our elevator in a long time? Michael told her. He was smiling. The elevator stopped. Are you getting off on this floor? The young man asked. Yes. Why? No, it's just that I'm coming the same way. He was very surprised. But when they got off the elevator, he went left, and she went right. When Michael stood already near the door, he turned around, looked at the stranger's back. May I ask your name? Sure. My name is Adriana. The young man inserted the key into the keyhole and had not yet made a single turn as he turned around again. Adriana, would you agree to meet me tonight? If you decide to be bold in the morning, you should stay that way. The young man decided. I think it's kind of awkward. She was embarrassed. At that moment, the door opened and the friends saw each other. I'm waiting for you all. The last words Michael said. Whether she heard or not, he does not know. The guy entered the apartment. Perhaps tomorrow he will get a new job. And today he will meet his future wife. Everything was good in his soul. Michael realized that if he chooses something in his life, it is forever. At 7:00 p.m., he left the apartment and headed to the place where he saw Adriana today. Michael pressed the call button one last time, and it took a long time for no one to open the door for him. Finally, a young girl appeared in the doorway. "Hi, who are you?" she asked. "Your neighbor. What's wrong? Are we flooding you?" No, it's okay. I met Adriana today. I made a date with her." "Came in," said the young man. "Come on in. She's been bugging me about it." The girl let him into the apartment and called her friend from the next room. Adriana was very surprised that Michael came by himself. Later, the young man found out that she had not heard when he made an appointment with her at 7:00. "Do you want to take me with you?" asked the one who opened the door for everyone today. "Yes, of course, Kathy. Come with us." Adriana looked at her. She didn't even ask Michael because she thought it was obvious, and Kathy would go with them too. Michael, of course, didn't really feel like going out with two girls, but there was no choice to either go with two or not go anywhere at all. They walked out of the apartment, down to the entryway. "To be honest, I'm not from around here. Everyone's gone out of town. They left me in charge of the landlady." Kathy started talking. "I asked Adriana to come over because I was bored, and Adriana was more and more silent. Apparently, she was attracting more attention from the young man. Michael planned to take the girls to the park, and then take them to a cafe. By evening, all three of them were sitting, talking, laughing, as if they had known each other for a long time. Would you like me to tell you my little secret?" Conspirator with whom Michael asked them in a whisper. "Do you have one?" Laughed the girls. Of course. He told them how this morning he met two men in a cafe, and they promised him a position in their company. "I've heard of that company," Adriana told him. She herself was at a technical school, so she had only a vague idea of what Michael was doing. "Well, shall we go home?" asked the young man because he had to get up early tomorrow. "Sure, let's go. Especially we live on the same floor." Kathy laughed. They went to their apartments. For tomorrow, Michael again scheduled a meeting with Adriana. Since morning, he had been preparing for no exams, no dates. He didn't prepare like this. The guy got out smoothly, combed his hair, put on the suit he only wore to prom, then went to that company to get a position. He was welcomed after seeing the guy's credentials, immediately offered a position as a specialist in the marketing department. When Michael was on his way back home, he planned that he would now stop by the girls' house, calling them to go for a walk. They would also sit in the cafe, celebrating his acceptance of the new jobs. The girls, of course, weren't expecting him, but when he reappeared at the door, they were surprised at his stern appearance. "Well, you're invited to celebrate my first positive response. I hope it's the last one on my resume." "He invited them," gladly replied Adriana, looking at her friend. "I don't have time today." Perhaps Kathy realized that the young people were in the midst of a relationship, or perhaps she really didn't have time for them. "But are you coming or not?" Michael was looking at Adriana. "Of course I'm going." She smiled guiltily, turned to Kathy. She went into the apartment briefly and came out to the young man. "Where shall we go?" he ventured, taking her hand. She shrugged her shoulders. "Don't be shy. Tell me." He himself did not understand why he liked this girl. But now, when they were standing next to each other, he realized that this was probably his future wife. They came to one of the cafes of the city, sat at a table. Michael ordered fruit and wine, some appetizers. "Tell me, do you have a dream?" Michael asked the girl. "I don't know." "Why?" He didn't understand. "I used to think that the most important thing was to find a man, get married, have children. And when I went to school, I realized that it's not so important." She sighed. "That's interesting." Michael sat down next to the girl. "It's just that in the countryside everything is easy," she said. "But in the city, what's in the city?" "Don't you get it, Michael?" He doesn't know. But it seemed to him that if you're determined and you want to achieve something, you have to go for it. But you need a good job here with a profession like mine. It might not work out, sadly said Adriana. That's exactly what a good husband is for, to provide for you while you stay at home, he told her. How sneaky are you? She laughed. Why is everything as it should be? The man earns the money and the woman finds a use for it. The young man muttered. And if a woman wants more than what he makes, she squinted. He stared absent-mindedly at her. I don't get it. No, you don't think anything. It's just that some women don't want kids. They want a fur coat, travel, expensive phones, she laughed. Oh yeah, that happens too. They continued to sit together. Everything was fine, but the day was coming to an end. They needed to head home. I'll see you again, Michael asked. If you suggested it, of course. I didn't want to keep anything from him. Adriana. I offer, of course, he told her. Paid the bill, and they walked towards the exit. Like yesterday, today they walked together because Adriana was still visiting Kathy. He walked her to her apartment. So, see you tomorrow. Yeah, let's see you tomorrow. She was about to go in. He pulled her to him and kissed her. Michael, did I like you so much? I couldn't help myself. He told her the truth. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. Auntie's gonna be worried. She sent him a kiss. Michael was very happy. First of all, he got his dream job today. Secondly, he'd met a wonderful girl. And thirdly, even if things weren't as rosy as he'd hoped, but sometimes you get triple the payoff for what you lose. The next day, he heard the elevator leaving. He figured Adriana and Kathy must have gone to school. It wasn't close for them to get there, so they had to get off early. He got ready, checked his briefcase, and only then went to work. He was well received by the staff. Now it remained only to get a foothold on this place to enter the university, and then it will be further seen. Michael did everything for this. He had a goal, and he was working towards it. Hi. He saw his girlfriends from afar. Do you still live here? He asked Adriana. I decided to spend one more night, and tomorrow I'll go to the dorm, she answered. You know, if you don't want to go to the dorm, just get your stuff out of there and move in with me, he told her. Michael, I can't do that, she replied. What's the big deal? If you don't want to, no one will bother you. Just live in peace, please. At least I'll know you're there for me. Safe and sound. He was speaking from the heart. Well, if that's really true, I guess I'll go along with it. Adriana looked at Kathy again. The next day, she drove to the technical school, then checked into the dorm. All that was left was to pack her things, to wait for Michael to come to pick her up in the evening. It was very pleasant. In Adriana's life, it was the first young man with whom she was so close, and she really liked him. But here was my apartment. He led her into the hallway. Wow, she looked it. Oh, don't mind me. It's my parents' apartment. They died when I was still in high school, and then when I got here. I moved here. I see, she smiled. What did you think of yourself just now? Wow, I'm so lucky. Finding a man and getting an apartment. He laughed. If you keep talking like that, I probably didn't move in with you, Adriana replied. That's it. Calm down. Everything will be fine. He came up to her, helped her through with her things. And presently, they entered the small room where Adriana was to live. Are you doing so well here? It's just like everyone else's. Come on. I've done practically nothing. Just a little redecorating. That's all I got to show for it. Even that was enough, she said. Now Adriana lived in the room, Michael in the hall. Naturally, they often crossed paths. The girl cooked. Met the young man with hot dishes. Kathy often came home to see her. Everything seemed to be going well. When the girl's studies were coming to an end, Michael decided to offer his girlfriend to stay with him. Neither did I understand Kathy. What's the big deal? Adriana's your friend. I'm your friend. Why wouldn't you be? I don't know. I'm kind of uncomfortable, the girl said, looking at her friend. What's uncomfortable about it? It's fine. We're with Michael. She took his hand together. And you will live in a small room, at least for the first time, until you get a job. You know, I don't think I'd say no to that. First of all, I don't have to carry my stuff all the way out there. Secondly, I didn't know you were a couple, but I was pretty sure you were. Kathy was happy. After graduation, the girls went to look for jobs. Why would you do that? I didn't understand. Michael, you don't understand. I have to get a job. Why did I study then? And what did you study for? He held out his hand for them to hand him their diplomas. He saw that the girls were cooks. They gave him what he wanted. You know, I have a friend who works at a company, and they need workers in the canteen all the time. Will you come? He asked them. If it's okay, yes, they didn't refuse. So now I call them. He sets a time and you go there. He said to the girls, Michael. Adriana ran up to him and started kissing him. Okay, don't get sentimental. Go first, in case he doesn't like something. The young man said sternly. But there was nothing in the girls that could not like. In a few days, they passed all the tests and started working in the canteen. Everything was fine. Michael did not feel any discomfort from having two girls living with him. On the contrary, he liked that his house was always cleaned and cooked by Adriana. Will you marry me? One day he asked the girl, Is that a proposal? She looked at him. At that moment they were lying in bed, getting ready for sleep. Can you consider it a proposal? But since it was, she was silent, raised her eyes to the ceiling. Why are you silent? Was he puzzled? No, of course not. I love you. She put her arms around him and started kissing him. So if you agree, we'll set the table tomorrow, and I'll invite a coworker. We'll sit and chat, Michael said to Adriana. Adriana was so happy inside that she couldn't explain it. Michael, where are we getting married? Adriana asked. The next day on his phone. Well, I don't even know. My wife and her best friend work at a huge caterer. So where are we gonna play? I don't know. He was joking again. I got it, she said into the phone. She immediately told her friend. She was very happy for her. You're lucky, Adriana. What kind of man did you get? Does he do everything for you? Kathy sighed when she heard that. Well, don't be jealous. You'll find one too. I didn't want to talk about it. Adriana. Where's the girl waving her hand and sighing? Everyone needs to start getting ready. The bride-to-be was very worried that it wouldn't work out. She first decided to write everything in a notebook. She opened the first sheet, put the number 1. Of course, under that number was the dress. Then 2. That was the restaurant where the banquet would be held. Then she gnawed on the tip of her pen and thought, why this point at all? After all, everything has already been decided. Crossed it out. So she began to think about what to write about the numbers 2. Guest, so you have to write about the invitation. What do you write there? Kathy asked her. I don't know. I just wanted to have a clear plan. And my head's a mess. She looked at her friend. Come on, she sat down next to her. They actually wrote a little plan of action as they turned the page. They started listing the guests they would invite to the wedding. Wow. Adriana looked at the list. Do you think Michael won't approve? Asked her friend then. I don't know. Adriana shrugged, even though she believed she was loved and did everything for her. After all, a wedding is once and for a lifetime. When practically everything was scheduled, the girls heard the front doors slam. It was Michael coming home from work. He went into the kitchen, saw the two girlfriends writing something about solving impossible problems. He joked. Look what we wrote. Adriana handed him a notebook. Great. He ran his eyes over the lines. Are you the best? She stood up and hugged her husband-to-be. Kathy was so happy for her friend that she just kept quiet. She didn't say anything for fear of jinxing it. On the weekend, the girls went to see the dress. Michael gave money, kissed her on the cheek, and told Adriana to buy what she liked. Thank you, sweetheart. She realized how much she loved this man. Choosing a dress was not as easy as they had imagined it would be. Adriana had always trusted her inner voice. When she wore the first dress, She liked it so much that she didn't want to try on another. But Kathy talked her into it. You what? One isn't a choice. What if the other one is better? She said that a few times. In the end, Adriana tried on so many dresses, but bought the first one anyway. I can just imagine how beautiful you're going to be. They left the store and walked down the street. Do you know how helpful you are? I don't even know how to thank you. Adriana turned around. Let's have a party tonight, suggested the girlfriend. Why not? Adriana didn't object. At first they wanted to do everything at home, because the girls knew how to cook very well. Then they talked together and decided that it would be better to sit in a cafe. They decided not to invite anyone, just the three of them. They always got together like that when they wanted to have a little fun. The girls got dressed up. They waited for Michael to come home. And when he came home, did you tell him everything? Did you book a table at the cafe? Michael asked. Why do you think everything will be busy? Adriana was surprised. Who knows? We should do it just in case. He was thoughtful. All right, I'll call you now. Went Kathy to the phone. Tonight was a very positive evening. Friends were sitting around the table, talking, discussing some of the aspects of the wedding, planning what they were going to do next. I should probably look for an apartment. I didn't ask, Kathy stated a fact. Why are you running ahead of the train? No one's chasing you. We'll see. Everything will be fine. Don't get upset, Michael said. Exactly, Auntie. Wait. A little supported the future husband, Adriana. Today they were coming home. They were laughing, joking. And when they got there, they realized how tired everyone was. And tomorrow they had to go to work. But Kathy said goodnight to the couple and went to her room. Come on, Michael said goodnight to you too. And they went to their room too. Everything was going great. There were no excesses. Everyone was getting ready for the upcoming wedding. Adriana and Kathy continued to work, but at the same time they were doing everything they could to make it great. Kathy, look at the shoes. Adriana showed her friend in the store window the shoes she liked. Yes, they are beautiful, but look how much they cost. The girl was telling her, you don't think it's even worth talking about them, Michael. Adriana looked at her. I don't. If you want to, you can. What if something comes over him? And he'll approve. Of course, if they were black or brown, you could go out with them. But with white ones, Adriana was silent. She wanted those shoes so badly. They came home and started cooking dinner. Everything was the same as always. In the evening, Michael came, and they all sat down at the table. And as they started to eat, Kathy looked at Michael. I know the politician saw those shoes today. They're amazing. But they cost the same, Kathy said. At that moment, Adriana froze too. She had already decided that she would not say anything to Michael. Firstly, because she knew he would agree to her every whim. And secondly, they cost so much. And soon it would be their joint budget. Why didn't she say anything to me? And why didn't she say anything? Michael turned to his bride-to-be. I wouldn't mind having such shoes, but I realized that it would be a big hole in our budget. She began to justify herself. I don't want to hear anything. I want my wife to be the most beautiful. Michael told her, maybe we shouldn't do it after all. Adriana looked at Kathy at that moment. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she was accusing her of having spoken out. So tomorrow, you and Kathy go to the store together after work and buy these shoes. Put Michael's money on the table. Okay, but maybe they don't fit me yet. Adriana took the money and put it in her purse. And then, when she and her friend were alone, she told her 10 more times that she was wrong to tell her about Adriana's secret. Come on, what are you, a friend? I knew right away you weren't gonna say anything. The shoes are really nice, Kathy smiled. Finally, the celebration came. Beautiful dress, shoes, though the bride was dazzling. Next to Kathy's girlfriend, who looked every bit as good. The groom in all black stood looking at his beloved. At the registry office, they exchanged rings, said to each other, yes, what they had waited so long for had taken place. But that's it. You're not going anywhere from me now. Michael pulled her to him and kissed her hard. Adriana was also very happy. She felt in her gut that this man was her destiny. Now they also continued to live together as a threesome. Until now, it didn't bother anyone. And then Kathy herself began to realize what was superfluous in this apartment. She started looking for a place of her own. "Kathy, do you want to leave us?" Adriana asked her one day. "What am I supposed to do with you guys here? I feel like I'm torturing you." She was telling the truth. "I don't know. I think you are," Adriana answered without embarrassment. She was so comfortable having her best friend around. Together, they walked to and from work. There was just one thing. Adriana was already married, and Kathy didn't even have a friend. But one didn't say anything about it, and the other didn't think anything of it. "Michael, do you know anyone you might know? Maybe we could introduce Kathy to someone. Did Adriana ask you once at dinner?" "You know, there's no one," he said. "That's too bad." Adriana smiled and looked at Kathy. "Why did you tell him that?" "A friend was talking tonight. What if he had made a good friend? We could have introduced you. Maybe something would have worked out." Adriana told her, "You know what? I'll find my own man," said Kathy. One day they were at work, and a younger man came into the cafeteria. He came up to the serving counter, taking a long look at something. Kathy noticed it and went over to him. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Yeah, you know, I was driving by, so I thought I'd stop. I'd never eaten in a place like this before, but I couldn't take it anymore." He looked at her, smiled. Wrinkles immediately bled all over his face. "Sure, let's have the first one." She walked over to a large tank in which there was soup. "And what do you have for the first borscht?" "Solnik." She waited for his decision. "Okay, let's," since the Solnik agreed the man. The girl poured him a deep bowl of soup, then offered him the second. He refused the side dish, took only the meat, and then put the compote on the tray, paid and went to the table. Kathy saw that he had forgotten his cutlery and napkins. She took them and went to him. "You didn't thank you. You are very kind and helpful." "The girl," replied the guest. Kathy smiled and went to her workplace. The guest ate, and after turning in the dishes, went over to Kathy to thank her again. Not a week later, the man was back in the dining room. Now he came not just for fun, but in a strict suit and with flowers. He smiled and looked at Kathy. "Hello, it was you driving by again." She walked up to him. "No, beautiful. I've come to see you. My name is David. I'd like to know your name." He asked her. "My name is Kathy," she answered, and she was very shy, because all the canteen workers came out to see this concert. She looked back at those who were watching it. Her cheeks were aching. She thanked the man, took the bouquet, and stood there not knowing what to do next. "Why are you so shy, child? Don't be. Tonight I invite you to the restaurant to get to know each other better." He touched her shoulder. "Thank you. I will definitely be there," she replied, and saw Adriana walking towards her. "Hello," David greeted her. "Good afternoon," she replied. After that, Kathy introduced them to each other once more, and that was the end of it. "Kathy, you see, I told you that everything will be fine in your life. Look at the man paying attention," the girl said, and looked in that direction, where David had just gone. "Adriana, he's twice my age." Kathy was looking at her. "So what?" "He's a solid man, not some guy from the diner." Adriana didn't understand her. "Yeah, he took me to a restaurant tonight." Kathy looked at the flowers again. "Well, go and don't even think about it." The girl was happy for her friend. As they walked home, they only discussed what Kathy would wear on their date tonight. "Remember the blue dress?" Adriana said. "Yeah, but it's really short. Do you think it would be okay if I wore it?" Kathy said, and turned to her friend. "Of course it's okay. You look really cute in it." They spent the rest of the drive discussing the rest of the accessories. When they got home, Kathy immediately took a shower and went to change. Now that she was ready, the girl really did look like candy. While in the hallway putting on her shoes, Michael walked in. "Wow, you look beautiful," Michael said. "Don't flatter me." Kathy lowered her eyes. "How flattering is that?" "It's really true." He took Adriana's hand and drew her to him. They stood and watched as the girlfriend left the apartment. "Now tell me," he smiled. "Wait, come on. Go wash your hands. We'll have dinner. I'll tell you everything there." She sent him into the bath. When they were in the kitchen, Adriana told her husband everything. Not to say that he experienced any happy emotions, but he was happy for his wife's friend that everything had worked out so well. She had nothing to worry about right now. If David really liked her, then really everything would be fine. At this time, Kathy had already arrived at the restaurant. She immediately noticed David, who got up from the table and went to meet her. He had a bouquet of flowers in his hands again. "Hello, beautiful," he said to her. He kissed her on the cheek, took her hand, and led her to the table. They sat across from each other. David had already ordered, so now he filled the glasses and raised his own to drink to the girl. "Please, please, don't be shy. If you don't like something, tell her right away," he asked her. "No, it's fine." They clinked glasses, bought some champagne, and started eating. "Do you like it?" David asked her. When Kathy tasted a piece of crab and its meat, "Yes, thank you very much. It melts in your mouth," she smiled. David realized that the girl worked as a chef, so she must know a lot about food. I really wanted to please her tonight. The evening went great. They talked for a long time, and then David left his car and went to see the girl on foot. It was cool outside. They walked and talked about different things. When they were almost there, David stopped the girl and asked her if she would agree to meet him again tomorrow. Of course, she smiled for the hours they had spent together. It seemed to her that they had known each other for more than a day, and his age was not as noticeable now as it had been at first. "But I'll come and get you tomorrow. May I?" he asked her again. Of course, she answered seriously, but inside she was jubilant, as if some little child was happy that he had been bought a new toy or something. She walked into the apartment and saw that the door to Michael and Adriana's room was already closed. She didn't bother them, went to her room, and went over in her mind what they had talked to David about today. She decided for herself that now she would talk to this man. And if he was really as nice as she had originally thought, she would probably stay with him. Naturally, in the morning, when they woke up and went to work together with Adriana, the girlfriend had 1,000 questions that when and how Kathy told her everything, and about the fact that today they have a meeting again. The girl was glad that her friend had found a man for herself. In the evening, David did indeed, as promised, pick up Kathy. They just drove around the night city. He showed her around, told her what to do and how to do it. And over the weekend, he invited her to come to his house. "David, can I come? Not alone, but with friends," she asked him, because on some level she was afraid. But at the same time it was uncomfortable that he invited her alone, and she would come with someone else. "Sure, we'll sit, have a drink together, get to know each other," he agreed. When Kathy was home, she had already informed everyone about it. And on Saturday, the friends drove to the address that David had left Kathy. Wow! Adriana got out of the car and saw the huge house they had been brought to. Kathy didn't know anything either. She stood there with her mouth open looking at all this wealth. "So what are you standing here for? Come on in." David came out to meet them. Everyone went into the house. David met Michael. The table was already set. They sat down and started talking about different things. The company was very cordial today. No one was judging anyone. No one was jealous of anyone. Everything was going great. From that point on, Michael and Adriana, David and Kathy all began to socialize together. They would gather at David's house very often because it was outside of town, and it was very convenient. By New Year's Eve, David got tired of Kathy coming to him as guests, so he asked her to move in with him. "I don't even know," Inside, she was both happy and confused, but in the end she agreed. And they celebrated the most important holiday together. Michael and Adriana were left to live together. And the girl began to think that perhaps it is time for them to think about a child. The man was not against it at all. He loved children and wanted them just at first. Kathy was together with them. He was building a career. His wife was building a career. And since she didn't talk about it, he thought as it worked out. David and Kathy. After they started living together, they didn't wait long and formalize their relationship. They didn't want to have a big wedding. They just called some friends and sat together in a restaurant. Adriana was happy for her friend. They continued to see each other on weekends. Soon her friend told Adriana that she was quitting her job. It was David's decision. "How is your relationship?" Adriana asked her because she was curious. "You know, I can see that he treats me very well, but I feel like he just wanted a wife," Kathy said. "So he has an au pair?" Adriana was surprised. "Yes, he does. But now we're traveling to different events. He dresses me from head to toe, introduces me to everyone. I think he does it to make other men jealous that he has such a young wife," Kathy said. "Sad. Why so sad, friend? It's good when other men pay attention, and David will love you more for it." She didn't understand the girl's regrets. "You know, I'm glad that David asked me to marry him, and that I'm living in his house now. We're good, but there's nothing inside. Yeah, he's cute. That's all there is," Kathy said sadly. 2 years went by like that. Sometimes, when Adriana called Michael to visit Kathy, he refused because David was not at home at that moment. But his wife would persuade him, and he would go. And David wouldn't say anything about us spending time all together. He'd ask a lot. "Michael, you're standing with him, aren't you?" "It's okay," Kathy reassured him, because she knew David never minded. When friends came to visit, one day when Adriana came home from work and her husband wasn't there yet, she felt sick to her stomach. Since this morning, she had felt as if she had poisoned herself. She felt dizzy. She even took her temperature a couple times, but it was nothing like that. When David came home, she told him about it. "Adriana, do you think you're expecting a baby? Have you looked at her?" "You know, I didn't even think about it," his wife told him. "I mean, it's been so long and still no pregnancy. And now that it's happening, she didn't think about it. Do you want me to run to the drugstore right now?" Michael asked her, "If you don't mind." At this point, she felt sick again. She went to the kitchen and drank some water. When Adriana returned to the hallway, she saw that Michael was gone. And a few minutes later, he was standing in the hallway already with a box in his hands. "Here, go check one today. If it doesn't show anything, you do the same." Tomorrow morning, he put everything in her hands. Adriana went to the bathroom. When the test was ready, the 2 red stripes glowed as if it was a magic wand and not a pregnancy test. She came out of the restroom, showed everything to Michael. He was very happy at that moment. It had been 5 years since the wedding. And now that they were pretty sure they were having a baby, they were both happy. The next day on her lunch break, Adriana excused herself from work and drove to the hospital. She wanted to make sure that this was indeed the case. After examination, the doctor confirmed that Adriana was indeed expecting a baby, but warned her that her body was very weak and she needed to take great care of her health. Of course, I will do everything. After all, we have been waiting for this miracle for so long," Adriana said at the time. The first thing she did was to call Kathy. "Are you expecting a baby?" She answered her. "Yeah, aren't you excited?" Adriana couldn't understand why her friend sounded like that. "I don't even know what to tell you," she replied and hung up. Strange. Adriana looked at the phone, put it in her bag, and went back to work to finish the day. In the evening, she told Michael everything, both about the baby and the fact that she had acted strangely. "We need to go to her to support her," her husband said then. "Well, if you insist, we can go." Adriana agreed with him. Today, the three of them sat together again. David was delayed somewhere. Kathy was annoyed. She kept saying things about David, about Michael, comparing them. Adriana didn't understand what was going on with her friend when they went home. Adriana was silent at first and then turned to Michael. "Have you noticed something going on with Kathy?" she asked him. Yes. He wouldn't say anything. That's all. Surprised his wife. "Perhaps she's having those days of yours," nodded the man's head. "Well, yes, perhaps," Adriana agreed with him. She walked to work very carefully now. Michael often drove her. Her stomach often ached, and she felt dizzy. So Adriana went to the doctors now and then. When she was 3 months pregnant, the doctor suggested she go into labor. "Oh, really? No, I won't go to the hospital. At home, everything is calm. At work, too," she told the doctor calmly. "Do you realize that you could lose the baby at any moment?" That's what the doctor said to her. "Okay, let's make a deal. If I get worse, I will come right away and stay here with you." So Adriana compromised. So they made a deal, and Adriana went home. When she entered the apartment, she saw Kathy's shoes in the hallway. "Hey, what are you doing here?" She came into the kitchen. "Why can't I come over to my friend's house?" She asked her overnight. "Why can't you?" "Yes, you can. I'll make some tea and we'll sit down," Adriana said. They sat in the kitchen. The apartment was silent. Adriana was surprised that Michael didn't come out to see them. She hadn't realized he wasn't even home. Michael left. Kathy told her when she realized she was expecting him to come into the kitchen. "Gone how?" "Gone where?" Adriana didn't understand the store. "I don't know. You should know better. You're the one living with him." Kathy sat there twirling a teaspoon in her hands. "I don't get it. I'm going to call them." She took out her cell phone and started dialing her husband's number. But he didn't answer. "What if he has a mistress?" Kathy asked her friend. "What are you talking about? What mistress?" "We're about to have a baby." She touched her stomach. "Why? Is he always working late? What does he tell you? And you believe everything." "It's good for him to go to his mistress. The wife believes it." Her friend kept talking. "Kathy, shut up," Adriana asked her. "All right. It's my business to warn," she said. She got up and walked towards the exit. "Did you come here on purpose to tell me all this?" Adriana looked after her. "Come on, calm down. You have a nice family. Everything will be fine for now." And she left the apartment. Adriana went back to the kitchen. She took out her phone again and dialed Michael again. She couldn't understand what had happened. She was so worried that her blood pressure had gone up. And after another hour, she started bleeding. The girl called an ambulance. The paramedics came and took her away. When she was already in the hospital, I realized that something terrible had happened. The doctor came into the room. He approached Adriana, took her hand. "What's wrong with the baby?" she asked. The doctor shook his head negatively. "I told you that you should stay with us. Why didn't you listen to me?" He squeezed her hand, stood up, and turned away. "Don't tell me." She was silent, and then she started to cry. "Don't be upset. You're still young. You'll be fine," he told her. "But why did it happen to me?" Adriana squeezed her eyes shut. Tears were flowing from her eyes, so that it was impossible to stop them. "Did you call your husband?" he asked her. "Yes, but he didn't answer for some reason." Adriana continued to cry. "Well, stay here. You need to rest. And then make sure you call him again." The doctor left the room. Adriana was alone. She didn't know what to think. What if something had happened to Michael? What if he was in an accident? What if he'd been hit by a car? Where could he have gone tonight? Until the morning, the girl didn't close her eyes. She just couldn't sleep. And in the morning, her husband called her. "Where are you? What's wrong with you?" He spoke excitedly. "Michael, where have you been?" she asked him in a stricken voice. "Tell me where you are, and I'll come and tell you everything." "Worried," he said. "I'm at the hospital. Our baby is gone. she replied, in a very sad voice. I'm on my way. He hung up the phone. When Michael arrived at Adriana's house, he told her that when Kathy arrived, she told him about David needing help to go, how not to help a friend. He dropped everything and went to David's. There was really a lot to do there. His phone was still in his bag, and he dialed her as soon as he'd arrived. It made sense, Adriana said, because she didn't care much about Michael's whereabouts right now. Their baby just wasn't there. Michael sat beside his wife. He didn't know what to say, what to do. There was only one thought running through his mind: regret that he wasn't home. It made the bullet so upset. He tried to speak some soothing words to her, but the woman was unsuccessful. Tears rolled from her eyes. There was no point in saying anything. I will need to go to David and Kathy again tonight, Michael told her. I don't want to hear that name again. Do you hear me? She punched him in the chest with her fist. What's wrong? He didn't understand anything, Michael. I may not be able to get pregnant again. This pregnancy was an accident, and the next one is not a sure thing. She was telling him. What are you talking about? Of course it'll work out. Couldn't calm down, Michael. Okay, we'll see, she said and wiped away a tear that had slipped traitorously down her cheek. When can you go home? Her husband asked her. I don't know. The doctor said I'm feeling better now. I guess we can go, Adriana said. They drove home in silence. They didn't feel like talking at all. Michael blamed himself for everything. Adriana fought back about the lost baby. When they were already home, Adriana just went to the bedroom, lay down on the bed, turned her back to the wall, and lay like that for a long time. There were so many thoughts in her head that she couldn't do anything. Sweetheart, take a pill. Michael came into the room. I don't want any pills. Without turning around himself, said Anna. He realized that their life was divided into before and after. He had always been a decent family man, coming home, helping his wife. And this happened here. Tell me, why? Why did she stay here? To wait for me, to bring me home. She told me about your mistresses, something else. What's it all about? Adriana turned to her husband. She was screaming and waving her arms. I don't know. He put his hands to his chest. You don't know. Then I'll find out. At this point, she became very dizzy and sat down on the bed. Michael sighed heavily. He went to the kitchen. He realized he was annoying his wife with his presence, and for about a month the couple just did not speak. Adriana knew that her husband went to David, helped them, but she could not even think about it, because in her head there was only one time. Kathy had told her about it. So she knows something. So she's seen something. What if they're all meeting together? But calling her friend was the one thing she didn't want to call. She blamed her for what had happened to her. It's been a year. Nothing in Adriana and Michael's relationship had changed. Just as they had grown distant from each other, they couldn't get any closer. She didn't trust him. Adriana, don't you think we should change things up? Somehow Michael sat down next to her. What exactly was she looking at him for? We used to be so good together, and now he stopped talking and looked at her. Do you know what Kathy told me about you? Adriana finally decided to have this conversation. What did she tell you? Was it interesting, Michael, that you had a mistress? She spoke quickly, because she didn't want to bring it up again. Adriana. And you believe it, he wondered. Why wouldn't I? She lowered her eyes and did not look at her husband. What a mistress. You're the love of my life. I met you and realized that you would be my wife. And now, no matter what anyone offers me, I will never trade you for anyone else, he hugged her. Adriana. She missed her husband's caresses so much that she buried herself in his chest and cried. It's true, she said through her sobs. Of course it's true. He pulled her tighter against him. From that moment on, life in the family began to get better. Although Adriana knew that Michael was still communicating with David, and she did not tell him anything about it. A few more years passed. At some point, Adriana's cell phone rang. She looked at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. Hello, she answered the phone. "Adriana, please come over." She heard Kathy's voice. "Why?" Immediately, she changed from grace to anger. David was dead. Her best friend had once told her what had happened. Adriana really didn't understand. Yes, David was a man of age, but not old enough to die. "I don't know. The hospital called me, told me to come over." Kathy was crying into the phone. "Hang on, I'll be right there," Adriana said and hung up. Just for a second. She thought about whether to do it or not, but being responsive to people trumped everything else. So she drove to her girlfriend's house. It turned out that as David was driving to work, a car pulled into the oncoming lane. He swerved the steering wheel. The car flipped a couple times, and when the emergency services arrived, all they had to do was record the time and date of death. "What a horror," Adriana said. "How happy were we with him?" So many years of sitting and rereading Kathy. Adriana, though, still hadn't forgiven her, but now she sat and comforted Kathy. Everything would be all right. "You'll see," she told her. And then there was the funeral. Michael helped with everything, never left Kathy's side. Even afterwards, when they got home, he told Adriana to go and see Kathy, to see how she was feeling. "Did you go with me to see your wife?" "No, go alone," she told him. Now Adriana had her own friends, her own interests, different company. She hadn't socialized with Kathy, and she didn't want to now. Every weekend, Michael would pack up, drive to his friend's house. He'd do the bath. He'd fix the gate. Every time he had something to do to help the girl. "Let's celebrate New Year's Eve together, like old times." One day, Michael suggested to his wife, "Michael, enough already." She asked him, "What did I say?" The man didn't understand. "You realize that because of this person I lost a child, and I will never have children again. Why do you want me to start talking to her again?" Adriana didn't understand. "Adriana, life goes on. Things change. You have to be kinder and forgive people." He wanted to cheer her up somehow. "I don't want to forgive anyone. Why hasn't she called or written in all these years? Why was she so cruel that night? Why did she say all those things to me?" She started twiddling her thumbs and listing. "Adriana, why did you believe all that? You should have believed me, not her." Michael lost his temper too. "Go to your Kathy and celebrate New Year's Eve with her." His wife was mad at him. "Okay, everybody, we have to stop. We're gonna have another fight." Michael took control of the situation. Right after New Year's Eve, Michael said he had to go to work, that everyone is on vacation and you will work. His wife didn't understand. "I promise, I'll make a couple calls, sign some papers, and go straight home." He told her, "Okay, let's just keep it short." She kissed him goodbye, and he left the apartment. Adriana went to the kitchen. She was preparing dinner, waiting for her husband's imminent return, but everything was already ready. Michael was still gone. She sat on a chair looking out the window. It was snowing in big flakes. Adriana began to remember how they had met Michael, how things had started for them. She smiled. It was starting to get dark outside, and her husband was still gone. Adriana cleared everything off the table, turned off the light in the kitchen, and went to her room. She turned on the TV. A movie was playing, but the woman couldn't concentrate on the plot. She kept thinking, where could her husband be? She kept thinking that maybe something had happened to him, but then she would probably get a call from the hospital. And then suddenly one terrible thought came into her head. What if he had gone to his mistress? Wouldn't he? Today is January 1st. Yesterday he spent the whole day with her. They congratulated each other, and today he should congratulate her. Adriana began to think to herself. She screwed herself up so much that she just turned off the TV. Light went to the bedroom and went to bed thinking about what her husband was doing wrong. She woke up in the morning, saw that her husband wasn't around. He smirked. "Oh well, she's got you so well drawn to her that you don't even come home anymore," she said out loud. She didn't want to think about Michael anymore. She went to the kitchen and made herself some coffee. As she sat at the table, and drank it. Various thoughts came into her head. Even though she didn't want to think about Michael, she couldn't do it. That was fine. But she was also talking to her lover to herself as she went to the bathroom and decided to start the laundry. Adriana sorted out the dirty laundry, put something in the machine, something left for later, because you cannot wash white color together. Started the machine. I went to my room, sat on the couch and decided to call my husband's partner to ask if he really had to go to work yesterday. "Hello, Sam, hi." She started to speak when Adriana answered on the other end. "Hello." He was surprised by her call. "Listen, did Michael have to go to work yesterday?" She asked him. "Yes. They sent us new contracts before the new year. He had to sign them. He didn't have any other work." "Why did something happen?" he asked. "No, nothing's wrong. I just wanted to see if my husband was cheating on me," said Adriana. She hung up the phone, and at that moment she realized that Michael was not cheating on her. But where could he be now? Here Adriana started to get nervous. She got up, went to her room. Her wife didn't know what she wanted there. But at some point, when she was going through the papers, she saw her husband's passport. "I don't understand." She opened it. He'd gone to work without papers, without everything. I guess he really only had to sign something. It was no fun now. She dialed one hospital, another. But the man she was looking for was nowhere to be found. It was late in the evening. So Adriana decided to dial Sam again. "Sam, I'm sorry to bother you again. But you know, Michael left for work yesterday. He said he wouldn't be long. And it's been 2 days, and he's still not here." She told him. "Like he hasn't been in touch with me," the man mumbled. "What do you think I should do?" "Go to the police." She asked him for advice. "You know, I'm not an advisor in this case, but I think it's worth a try. You're the wife, after all," the man told her. Adriana hung up. She still hoped that Michael would come back and decided to wait until morning before calling or doing anything else. But when it was morning and Michael was still not home, she did not think about anything. The woman gathered her papers, his papers, drank her coffee, got dressed, and went straight to the police station. On the way, she began to think that what if he is now at the mistress? What if he is somewhere else? And she as a fool will come and start to tell that her husband is missing, and he will be found in 2 days, and that she will be laughed at. Had she stopped? "No, I'm not going anywhere," she told herself. But in another moment she thought, what if something really happened to him, and she did nothing now? What would they say later? She moved on. She was admitted to the station. The investigator listened to her, handed her a paper to write a statement. When, with whom, to where, what he looked like. It all had to be written. There Adriana diligently wrote out the letters while her mind was again filled with thoughts. The application was accepted. They promised to do a search right away. But no matter how many times Adriana called the department, they couldn't tell her anything. Michael was now neither dead nor alive. He couldn't be found just anywhere. What am I supposed to do? She closed her eyes with her hands. The woman sighed deeply. It had been 6 days since we had been away from home. The phone lay in front of her. It was silent. Adriana stared at it for a long time. Then she picked it up and decided to dial Kathy's number. "Hello, Adriana." "Hi. What's up?" She heard the greeting on the phone. "Kathy, do you know what happened?" Adriana was silent. A lump rose in her throat because now she knew she was going to cry. She couldn't continue the conversation. "Well, talk. I'm listening." Kathy got worried on the other end of the line. "Michael is missing," she said to her. "Missing? Gone where?" Her friend started asking questions. "That's the thing. I don't know where he's gone. At first I thought he was with his mistress, but then I realized he would have let me know anyway, said he was leaving or something. And then I went and filed a police report, but they couldn't do anything either. Can you believe it? On the morning of January 1st, he just left for work and never came back." The woman spoke through her sobs. "Yes, how can that be? Michael is a grown man. If something had happened to him, had he been in an accident or just died, you would have been notified, Kathy said. I'm sure I'm sorry I called you. I just didn't know what to do, Adriana told her. So wait for me at home, and I'll be right over. Kathy hung up, and Adriana thought she should let her come over. It would be easier with the two of them than alone. Kathy was at her place an hour and a half later. They sat in the kitchen, both of them silent, drinking tea, no conversation flowing. Then Adriana told Kathy to go home. They weren't going to solve anything anyway. Well, don't worry. I hope they find your Michael. It's not the 90s. There's no racketeering. No one's moving anyone out. Kathy headed for the exit. She looked at Adriana and left the apartment. Adriana was lying in bed, but there was no sleep. Then she thought since the police couldn't handle this case, she should hire a private investigator. She had the money, so there would be no problem with that. She found a man in the classifieds who could do it. She arranged to meet him at a cafe. Hello, tell me what happened. They were sitting at a table. The man had a notebook in front of him and was ready to take notes. Adriana told him everything she knew. All she knew was that her husband had gone to work and never came home. Are you sure he hasn't found someone else? The detective asked her. You know, I think if he had someone, at least he came for his things. Well, he'd definitely come back for his passport. Adriana told him. Oh, I see. He wrote everything down, took Adriana's coordinates, put his hand on hers, and asked her not to worry. After that, she went home. There was only one thing left to do. Wait. There was nothing she could do on her own. The New Year holidays were coming to an end. She had to go to work. There was still no news. Ethan kept calling Adriana, finding out about mutual friends and girls she might have seen in pictures or something, or maybe she suspected someone herself. Kathy said everything she knew. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you something now, but I can't not do it, he once said to Adriana. Yes, of course. Ask anything I know. I'll tell you. She was ready for it. You told me that he used to go to your ex-girlfriend Kathy's house all the time, helping her with her chores. Couldn't he go to her place now? He asked Adriana. Oh, shut up, will you? Adriana. She wanted to tell him that Michael would never do such a thing. And then she wondered why he'd gone to her every weekend after David died. What did they do there? She doesn't know that. What if they were having an affair? Kathy was always jealous of her, said she had a good husband. Hello, Adriana, can you hear me? Ethan said. Yes, I can hear you. I'm just thinking, she replied. So, was she pondering? Was Ethan wondering? You know, when Kathy's husband died, Michael used to go to see her all the time, saying he was helping out around the house. And now, I don't even know what to tell you. She didn't want to say anything bad about her husband, but at the same time, she had her doubts. Okay, I heard you. I just needed to know if he had a reason to go there. He started to say goodbye, but it was goodbye. Waiting for news, Adriana dropped the call. And now she had something else on her mind. Could Michael have cheated on her with Kathy? Again and again, the thought came back to her mind. She thought about it, but couldn't come up with anything. A day later, Ethan called again. Adriana, can I come over? Are you at home? He asked her. Yes, of course, come over. She was glad that he had some news. Adriana put the kettle on, took out some cookies on the table. She was ready to meet the detective. He arrived, said hello. They went straight into the kitchen. But what do you have some news? Adriana didn't know what to think anymore. She called the police. They too were just throwing up their hands. She hoped to get some results here. Look, I don't know how you're gonna take this information right now, but let me talk. Listen to the end, and then we'll draw conclusions together. Ethan asked her. Yes, of course I'm listening, she told him. I asked you, Kathy, for a reason. When you said you used to socialize, you were family friends. I decided to observe her for a while. She's been acting very strangely. She hardly leaves the house, doesn't turn on the lights. even though I know she's inside. Maybe you could talk to her openly, Ethan asked her. I don't understand what you're getting at. You think Michael is living with her and they are cheating on me together. She concluded. From what the PI said, no, I'm not saying anything. I'm just very curious as to why this is happening. The detective asked a question. You see, there was an incident many years ago that made me feel very bad. After that, Kathy and I didn't speak to each other until after her husband died. And then I can't say we had the warm friendship that we used to have. And now I can't just call her up and say something like that, Adriana said. She sat there, squeezing her fingers so hard they were already red. Okay, if you're still talking to her like that, maybe you and I can go to her place, see what's going on with her and talk. Ethan talked her into it. If you know something, you can talk on the line. Tired of listening to him walk around. Yeah, around. I don't know anything yet. I'm just guessing, he told Adriana. Good. We can go to her place tonight, the woman said and poured more tea into the mugs. Great, that's what we'll do, Ethan said. They talked some more with Adriana before drinking tea and the man headed for the exit. Thank you for taking so much of your time and for doing this. The woman spoke earnestly. Wait, thank you, nothing has happened yet. He looked at her. Adriana returned to the kitchen and began clearing the table. She kept going over the conversation with Ethan in her head. Why had he started following Kathy in the first place? Why hadn't he thought that someone in the office might be involved in Michael's disappearance? And then another crazy thought popped into Adriana's head. What if Michael was on his way home and he'd been kidnapped? That's enough of that kind of thinking, she said to herself. Adriana went to her room and turned on the TV to the channel where singers were performing. She listened to familiar songs and sang along. The woman realized that there was a disaster in her family. A man was missing. But she couldn't help it. All sorts of silly things came into her head. Finally, the evening came. Adriana was ready. All she was waiting for was for Ethan to come and pick her up. When the phone rang, she even flinched. Did you pull up? She saw his name on the screen. Yes, I'm waiting for you, he said. At that moment, Adriana turned off the lights, opened the door, and hurried downstairs. What was going to happen now? She couldn't even guess. She could only hope that it was not what Ethan and Michael thought it was. Not her friends. It was cold outside. So Adriana quickly got into the car, where the heater was working. It seems to have gone only 2 meters, and already about another put it. Let's go. Ethan turned to her. Yes, she nodded decisively. The car started up. Pleasant music was playing in the cabin. The men and women were silent. Adriana didn't think about anything now that Ethan was beside her. She knew this road like the back of her hand. They should turn right here and then take a sharp left. She and Michael had come here before. So many times, they couldn't even count. Almost there, she said. The fence of Kathy's house was already in sight. They pulled up just as Ethan had said. There were no lights in the windows, even though it was still late. Adriana had the good idea to call Kathy. Wait, don't drive. It's too close, she asked Ethan. She took out her phone and her purse and dialed her friend's number. Hello, she heard a voice. It wasn't sleepy. Hi, Adriana said calmly. Where are you now? At home. I'm a little sick. The girl's voice changed immediately. She started to sing a little. I see. And I wanted you to come to me. Annoyed, and said Adriana, I'm sorry, there is no way today. Kathy said, okay, see you later, challenged Adriana. But what did I tell you? I saw she was home. But why doesn't she turn on the lights? Maybe she doesn't want anyone to know she's out there hinting at men again. Let's go and ask her ourselves. Adriana's about to get out of the car. We'll be right there. He stopped her. They were at the fence, got out of the car. Adriana rang the bell. Inside, no one moved. There was total silence. Or maybe she tricked me, that the woman at home turned detective. I don't think so. He showed her what? The one that had just gone down on the second floor. By opening it, I know you're home, shouted Adriana then. They stood outside the gate. It was so cold that their feet were quickly starting to freeze. Adriana started pounding on the gate, but it was having no effect. Kathy, if you don't open it now, we'll come back tomorrow. But not alone, but with the police. The man decided not to be shy either. At that moment, the light on the first floor came on. A few more minutes passed, and the lock beeped, alerting that the doors were open. A woman and a man entered. Ethan looked around. There was nothing suspicious. The front door to the house was open as well. Kathy, they walked in and stopped. She stood there looking at them. Only now she pretended she had just woken up. What's going on? She asked and yawned. No need to pretend. Where's Michael? Immediately went on the offensive. Adriana, what are you like, Michael? What are you talking about? Did not understand her friend, my Michael. You have it. Adriana, everything was already shaking. She could not calmly watch the concert that her friend was playing out. Ever since high school, Adriana remembered how well Kathy was at playing different roles. Michael who? What are you doing breaking in on me in the middle of the night? You're threatening the police. I can call them too and tell them you broke in. My friend went on the offensive. Okay, you don't want to tell me. I'll find him. She went inside Adriana's house. She knew every corner of the place. Adriana, come on, there's no one here. Kathy looked after her, but it was useless. The woman would do anything to find her husband. Adriana went to the kitchen to the guest bedroom, then went up to the second floor. There were more rooms there, but she looked in them too. As a result, the house was glowing like a Christmas tree now, because there were lights on in all the windows. Where is he? Adriana came close to her friend. She could believe everything now. I told you he wasn't here. Kathy stood her ground. Well, then can I ask you a question? Ethan approached him. When was the last time you saw Michael? Ethan asked the lady of the house. I don't know, sometime before New Year's. Shrugged. Clearly, we're not getting anywhere here. He sat down on the couch. Adriana came over and sat down next to him. She folded her arms across her chest and began to think that what they'd done was stupid. Coming over and breaking into a man's house. Or maybe you really are sick. Did they come at her with fists? Wait. Adriana stood up suddenly from her seat and walked over to the fireplace. What was Ethan tensing up over there? Why is she the one who picked up Michael's watch from the shelf? I don't know. Kathy was getting nervous. I do. It's my husband's wristwatch. The detective looked at it. So what? He came to see me so often. He could have left it at any time. Kathy couldn't stand anymore. Did she crouch on the step? No, he couldn't have left them anywhere. Remember the day he started work? Well, that's when that watch was given to him by the manager who got him there. He never took it off. Only took it off at night. Adriana said. Her voice was shaking. I don't know. Then the girl lowered her gaze. I know everything. Adriana came very close to her. You know something, her friend averted her eyes. What are you, Michael? Lovers? Adriana even choked when she said that word. Calm down. He wasn't cheating on you. Kathy exhaled and got up from the steps. Tell me what you know. Adriana wanted to hear everything. I can't. I'm scared and started crying. Kathy, it's too late to repent now. Spit it out. A woman stood over her best friend from the past. I'm so sorry, please. I didn't mean any harm. I've been jealous of you from the beginning. Maybe that's what got me into the girlfriend thing. 2. Kathy continued to sob. I don't get it. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Adriana was in a stupor. What does jealousy, friendship, and everything else have to do with it? If they are now looking for a missing person, I killed Michael, Kathy said quietly. You did what? Their eyes, Adriana. I'm sorry. Kathy fell on her knees in front of Adriana. Wait, explain exactly how, when, and where. The woman asked. Ethan, meanwhile, had turned on the tape recorder. Then, when you met him and he first came for a walk with us, I immediately fell in love with him. I thought he'd look at me too, and he kept his eyes on you. Then when you two started living together and you asked me out, I thought that was lucky. But no matter how many hints I made, he never even responded. Where did this David come from out of nowhere? Yeah, I liked him. But I told him right away that you'd be coming over very often. And we started to become family friends. Even then, I never gave up trying to get Michael, Kathy said. She wasn't looking at anyone at the time. You've got to be such a head shaker, Adriana said. Then you told me you were expecting a baby. I couldn't let that happen. I thought if I told you things, you'd get nervous and miscarry. So I did. And when David died, I didn't let it go to waste. The house was in need of renovation by then. So I started looking for reasons for Michael to come visit me. Kept telling the truth. Kathy. God, how blind was I? Adriana's sitting down now, because it was hard to hear how you've been lied to practically your whole life. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm definitely going to jail now. Kathy was crying more and more. And then what happened? She didn't expect anything good anymore. A woman whose husband disappeared. Before New Year's Eve, he told me he'd ask you to reconnect and be the three of us together again. I found out later that he did, but you said no. So I asked Michael to come over and sit down with me. He said he couldn't do that either because he didn't want to ruin things with you, and you'd celebrate New Year's Eve together. I was willing to wait. And when he called on the first of the year to wish you a Happy New Year, I thought of a new job for him, and he didn't say no. He said he'd do it quickly and come to you. She looked up at Adriana at that moment. Okay. At what point did you kill him? She asked then. She thought Kathy was not right in the head. He arrived as usual. I sat him down at the table, put out some salads, poured some tea. We sat talking. At some point, Michael said he couldn't eat anymore and went to the couch. At that moment, he took off his watch because he had to go to the yard. That's when I decided to let it be. When he turned around from the fireplace, I guided his neck with my hands and wanted to kiss him. Tears flowed from her eyes with renewed vigor. Stop crying. Can you tell me what happened? Kathy was starting to piss Adriana off, especially now when she started talking about kissing. My wife's insides were even tightening. He grabbed my hands, gave me this look and pushed me away. And then he turned around and went to the door. And I flew up behind him. And I pushed him in the back with all my might. I didn't expect him to start falling. But Michael fell and bumped his head against the corner. She pointed to the marble coffee table. What and where is he now? Adriana turned pale. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. It was an accident. Kathy started to yell. Ethan was sitting on the couch at that moment. He had such a drama in front of him. He was taping everything. I hope you called an ambulance. Adriana came very close to her. I checked. There was no pulse. Got really scared and dragged him out the second exit to the backyard. She looked up at her friend and fell silent. Is he still in there? Adriana pointed her finger in the direction where the exit was. Yes, Olechka, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. She followed her as she threw off her jacket and headed for the exit. Get away from me. Abruptly, she turned around. She saw Ethan following them. The woman jerked the doors open. The cold immediately hit her in the face. She stepped out here already into the snowdrift. She took a second step, but saw no one. Kathy, where is he? She shouted to the mistress of the house. It's farther behind the well. She pointed in the direction with her hand. God, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Adriana walked through the snow and sobbed. She got to the place Kathy said she was going to. And she saw Michael's shoe. The woman crouched down and started digging it out of the snow. Because it was so cold outside, it hadn't changed much. Adriana, take this. Ethan handed her something. Everybody get away from me. She wouldn't calm down. Then Ethan went back inside. He decided to call the ambulance police so they could take it from there. After he hung up, He'd managed to get Adriana into the house. Kathy was drinking something at this point. Apparently, the sedative had been waiting for about an hour. After that time, everyone was already here. While the police paramedics were examining the body, Adriana sat and kept her eyes on Kathy. It seemed like she was about to get up and just tear up her now definitely ex-girlfriend to shreds. Ethan was in control of this. He knew the woman was in shock now, and in that stage she could do anything. "We're taking the bodies, and we're taking you all too." Standing in the doorway was a man in uniform. It was obvious that he was freezing. They all walked out of the house. Kathy was put in the police car, and Ethan asked that he and Adriana ride in his car. They spent 0 o'clock this afternoon at the station. Kathy was telling again how everything had happened, and Adriana was only confirming her words. Ethan handed over the tape he had made at Kathy's house. "Okay, you're going home. We'll leave you here." He looked at Kathy. "I'm sorry again. She never," the woman whispered. Ethan brought her home. He looked in the medicine cabinet for something to calm her down and dipped it into a glass of water. Adriana drank. She kicked back on the couch. There were different feelings inside. Right now, she was thinking how mean her friend had been. After all, she was at her house and making such a surprised look. When Adriana had told her about Michael disappearing and him lying in her backyard the whole time. "I guess I'll just stay here and sit in the chair." "Ethan, thank you," Adriana told him. She sat there, staring at one point and thinking. Unbeknownst to her, the shock or the sedative had taken its toll on her, and she fell asleep. Ethan had been watching her the whole time. But then his body couldn't take it either, and he fell asleep in the chair. Michael jumped up from Adriana's couch, startling herself and startling Ethan in the process. "It's all right." Immediately, a man came up to her. "It's not true," she cried, remembering last night. Unfortunately, but it wasn't. The man put his arm around her waist and sat her back behind the couch. "Oh my God. The man I know took all my favorite people away from me a long time ago." Adriana started crying again. Ethan went to the kitchen. He put the kettle on and dug out her sedative again. He realized that even now he could not leave Adriana alone. He went to the kitchen, made coffee, and came back with 2 steps. "Here, you need a drink." He set it in front of her. "I don't want one." She shook her head. Good. He didn't argue with her. The time until lunch stretched very slowly, and when the phone rang in the silence, it was like a bell striking above his ear. "Hello." Adriana answered the phone. "Hello. Can you come over?" a man's voice asked her. "Yes, of course." She shifted her gaze to Ethan. He nodded his head. At the same moment, she got up from the couch and went to the front doors. The man followed her. "Thank you for being there for me. I don't know how I would have done it alone." She turned to him. "It's okay. Everyone needs the help of someone else," he said when they were already in the driveway. They got into the car, which Ethan walked around for a few more minutes, and only then did they drive. There was complete silence in the cabin. Everyone was thinking about their own things. When they pulled up to the station, Adriana couldn't get out of the car. Her legs felt like absorbent cotton. Ethan gave her his hand, and together they went inside. The investigators were saying something. Adriana sat and listened, but the conversation was through absorbent cotton. But one thing Adriana heard clearly. It turned out, after the examination of Michael's body at the morgue, that when Kathy carried him outside, he was still alive. Alive. The wife jumped up from her chair. Yeah, he had a severe blow to the head, but his heart was beating. "Your friend." When the man said the word, he looked at Adriana as if apologizing. "Couldn't have gotten a pulse. She's not a doctor." Oh my God. It gets scarier every day. Adriana became hysterical. It was clear that she wouldn't listen to anything else. And then they started interrogating her every day. Both Adriana and Ethan were called in. Until it was over. It was almost at that moment they were allowed to take the body away. They had to bury it. "Don't worry, I'll make arrangements," Ethan muttered to Adriana. He himself doesn't know what it was that got him so hooked on her that he just wanted to help her. He did make arrangements with the funeral home. They did everything to the best of their ability. Adriana looked at her husband lying in the coffin and could not believe that all this was really happening. "Forgive me, my love, for not believing you." She kissed him. And then there was the trial. Kathy sat in the cage. She only had eyes for Adriana, and Adriana for her. People were saying things, but the widow didn't know what was going on. She was asked something for the 100th time. She answered on automatic. When the judge left to pass sentence, Adriana turned to Ethan. "Oh, get me out of here," she asked him. "Okay, let's go." He gave her his hand. They arrived at her house again. Ethan was sitting in the same chair again. He was looking at Adriana. She moved like a robot, knew where to pick up things and where to put them. "You need to eat properly," he told her. "Do you realize what happened?" She sat down on the couch and stared at the man. With difficulty, but the picture was becoming clearer. He fell silent. "I don't know how many years she was sent to prison for, but I wish her all the pain she went through," I told Adriana, with anger in my voice. "You don't have to." "So she's human too," Ethan said. "And I'm not. She ruined my whole life." Adriana cried. "That's it. You don't have to cry anymore. It won't help anything." He patted her hand. "When was the last time you were home?" she asked the man. "The day you and I were going to go carry." He didn't finish because he thought he would make Adriana uncomfortable. "Wow, at least you ate." She looked toward the kitchen. "Well, yeah, something before Kosovo," he smiled. "And slept." Adriana began to question him. "It's okay. The main thing is that everything is the same with you." He smiled at her. "You're a real person, you know." She smiled for the first time in a while. "I cared before your case." Ethan did spend a lot of time in this apartment, but he didn't feel anything but rash and some kind of hunger. Even though Adriana asks about it, he made her porridge, sandwiches, and everything else for herself every morning. "Oh, why didn't I pay you?" She gulped, got up from the couch, and started looking for her bag. "Calm down. It's nothing. I've basically done nothing. Just put you in the right frame of mind." He took her hands in his. "But it can't be like that, can it?" She sat down on the couch again. "Everything in life can be." He smiled at her. She calmed down. They continued to communicate with Ethan. Summer came. Adriana came to the cemetery every day. She sat on a bench, talking to Michael. She loved being here. "Hey, what are you doing?" Ethan called her every night. "It's okay. Come visit." She always invited him, but he rarely agreed. At first he didn't come at all, saying he was busy, but then he started coming once every week or two, and they knew almost everything about each other. "You know, I miss you so much. I'm so used to having you around," Adriana said to him. They were sitting in her kitchen. It was snowing outside the window. "If you wanted me to, I'd stay for good." He finally decided to say it. "I can't betray Michael." She shook her head. They spent New Year's Eve together, and on January 1 they drove to the cemetery together to honor Michael's memory. They stood by the grave for a short time, put flowers on it, and drove back home. "I can't believe it's been a whole year since he's been gone," Adriana said sadly. "Adriana, I'm sorry. I'm a little busy today. I'll drive you home and leave you there. I'll come back tonight, and I'll look at her." "Sure," she smiled. Adriana went up to the floor, undressed, made herself a hot tea. She sat down on the sofa, returned to the plate, and took the family album in her hands. How happy were we? Adriana looked at the pictures. The album was half empty because those photos, where Kathy was, she just tore. The woman didn't realize how she'd fallen asleep. "Hello." Michael came running towards her. All around was summer, warmth, grass, green apple trees. Then Adriana. "Michael, how are you?" Adriana looked at him. She ran up to him, touched his face, and couldn't believe he was alive. I just came to meet you." He kissed her cheeks, lips, neck, and cheek. He always did that, and she always said that. Adriana, not giving up on Ethan. He's good and he loves himself. Looked at her seriously. "Michael, what are you saying?" "I love you." She couldn't look into his eyes. "I don't. Remember me. Live with Ethan." He was looking at her very seriously. She knew that look. "You've done well," she thought. She laughed. "Very well." He kissed her once more and disappeared. Michael woke up Adriana. She thought the smell of his perfume still lingered in the room. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Adriana went to open it. Ethan stood on the doorstep. In his hand was a bouquet of flowers. He smiled and held out a cake to her. "I'm sorry. I just woke up. That's why so much for slowing down." She took the flowers and the cake and carried everything into the kitchen. "I don't know if you're going to say no or not, but I brought champagne too." He took out an empty bottle. "Come in." She called him to the table. "I want to drink to the most beautiful lady in this room." Ethan raised his glass. "I'm smitten." She pretended to be surprised. They were talking about something. Adriana looked at Ethan and realized that she really liked him. And Michael had said, rightly, that he was a reliable man. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked her then. "I was dreaming about Michael," she said. But at the same moment she thought she was about to be taken for a lunatic. "And what did he say to you?" "It was interesting, Ethan, to make me look in your direction," she smiled. "And you became even more interesting. I'm sitting here thinking, why not?" There was laughter in the kitchen again. "I love it when you laugh," Ethan said. He got up and walked out of the kitchen. He was gone only a few minutes. Then he came to the door, knocked on the jamb. "Come in." Adriana understood his game. "Hello. Can I meet you?" he asked and looked Adriana straight in the eyes. "Yes, my name is Adriana. And you are?" "I'm Ethan. What do you do?" Adriana asked a new question. "I'm going to ask you out tomorrow. And I think I might say yes." They had another drink. After that they talked about everything for a long time. They sat up until nightfall. And then Ethan started to get ready to go home. As he held her hand as he walked back, at those words her heart folded in her heart. She remembered the gruesome story again. "Don't." He put his arm around her. "How about you stay?" she asked him, even though she knew it sounded ambiguous now. "No, a decent girl doesn't act like that." He wagged his finger at her. "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." She closed the door. After that, Adriana lay down on the couch and started thinking about Ethan. Not as a good acquaintance, but as a man. They had started dating. Ethan tried to surprise her all the time, making up things, taking her on outings, and close to New Year's Eve, he proposed to her. "I said yes," she whispered then. They played a wedding, at which there was almost no one. And in March, Adriana was surprised to discover she was expecting a baby. "Don't even look. This baby is going to be born." Ethan wagged his finger at her. "Thank you," Adriana said quietly. She knew it was Michael who had helped her get pregnant. "What's there whispering?" Her husband came up to her. "I wasn't going to do anything," she said quietly. "Adriana, I'm the luckiest man in the world," he told her. "And I'm a lucky woman," she rejoiced. In the summer, when they were walking in the park, Adriana couldn't even see her legs because of her huge belly. They thought they were going to give birth to a rich man. And it was. On the doctor's due date, little Michael was born. Neither Ethan nor Adriana had any doubts about what the baby would be called. The now proud father went out to the yard every day with the stroller. He looked at his wife and could not believe how lucky he was.